Hello, everyone, and welcome to Geeky Geezers. I need to be like you. I need to do like a little thing where I do a joke each time.
You know what? And maybe it's partly because of Netter ripping on me about the jokes. You notice the past couple weeks I haven't really had a joke so much.
I like your joke.
I have started pivoting into a little video after my opening, or a fake commercial or something. I don't know. I'm trying to find some way to mix it up and make it interesting. But yeah, thanks. I appreciate somebody acknowledging the work that I put into my shows.
Someone made a meme, and it was like a one of those frozen food type dinners, right? And it says Stacy Keach's table scraps, and the quoted on the box is, "I don't effing want this." like they just take his table scraps at dinner and put it in a frozen, and people buy it because Stacy Keach's. Anyway, welcome everybody. I am Agent Boomer. This is my co-host PaPa Pacelli.
Yeah.
What you sipping on there?
Just a Diet Dr. Pepper. You know, it's funny because Diet Dr. Pepper, well, it rebranded to Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar with a different can. It's like a black and burgundy, which is an attractive enough can, but it doesn't look like the old white and burgundy, right? And unfortunately, it's at exactly the same time that Coke Zero, or Diet Cherry Coke Zero, changed their cans to almost exactly the same color scheme. So for a while there, Netter and I couldn't tell our drinks apart. And I said, you know what, just switch to straight Diet Dr. Pepper and we'll both drink it. There's no reason for us to have two different drinks, you know. No reason. She's like, well, I don't want to make you not get what you like. I'm like, I got to be honest with you. Kind of like the Dr. Pepper more than the Cherry Coke, so let's just go with it.
Okay. Well, hey,
I'm sounding like a geezer, aren't I? You know, I'm really keeping us on brand tonight. I really am making Netter and I sound like an old married couple, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. I'm certainly not complaining, but it certainly does sound like some geezer stuff. But maybe we should get into the geeky stuff, because I think that's why our audience actually comes to the channel.
Before that happens, let me say hi to the chat.
Yeah, speaking of the audience, right?
Al presents. I believe you were first, so welcome.
Welcome, Al. We love you. We're praying for you guys.
Yes. Always, yes.
Netter's Network, wielding the blue wrench. Glad you're here, sweetie. I love you too.
Yes. Welcome to that. Welcome, Auditor Dread.
Auditor Dread, love you too, buddy.
Big Al presents. Has Auditor Dread ever been on a show, or is he always just been in the chat? Has he ever been on anyone's show?
I don't know, Auditor Dread. Answer that question for us. Have we had you on you stream to chat with us?
You'll have to let us know. Joshua V is here. Welcome. So
you said Daniel Herron, right?
That's not Daniel Herron. We are going to be doing
Soundtracks with Birdman
rewatch of Minority Report on Wednesday, the great Steven Spielberg movie. I've been trying to catch up on that this weekend. That is a really great Steven Spielberg movie. I kind of forgotten about.
I forgot it was Steven Spielberg. Yeah.
I have to give Spielberg credit. He went kind of outside his wheelhouse with that, but he did a great job with that movie.
Is that a
K. Dick story?
I was going to say it seems like it would be a Philip K. Dick story.
Philip K. Dick, yep.
And let me tell you something. I know that Soundtracks with Birdman does tend to focus on the soundtracks of things, but boy, you could really get into a couple political things there with the whole, future crimes and thought crimes, and being charged with crimes you haven't committed yet.
What's interesting about this movie is I can see both sides of the argument, because it really is a head scratcher, because it's like, but this person would have committed the crime and there's evidence, but then of course but they haven't actually committed the crime. Yes, but it was going to happen, and it's like,
but there's two elements there though that kind of get glossed over. It still comes down to the simple matter of you're bypassing due process.
Yes.
Because on the one hand, the proof you think you have, there's suppression of. That's what the Minority Report is.
Well, to be fair, there's an investigator for the Justice Department there who doesn't. he's trying to find. He doesn't. He's against this whole process.
But there's the other aspect
bring
of
that in this movie too. Yeah.
The second side of it is, bless you, Netter, is that even if they were, even if time works that way and they were going to do it, what about maybe just saying, we know you're going to do this, don't do it, and then he doesn't do it? You've just changed that future, so there are a bunch of steps to put in place before you say you're guilty of a crime you haven't committed yet and we're arresting you. Well, maybe just say, hey buddy, we know you're planning to do this thing, don't do it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's very weird. I remembered, I think I mentioned on Matt Six channel, there was this show that I like to watch called UFO, right?
Yes.
And,
we did. Did we do that as? I think you did that as Culture Fortress.
Yeah, Culture Fortress. Yeah, and there was an episode where, of course, the whole idea is that they're aliens coming to Earth, and this organization is up to stop them from abducting people. Well, there's a whole side story where this married woman and her young lover were conspiring to murder her husband. But then because an alien showed up to the wife, everything got thrown off. And they were able to stop the alien, or maybe instead of murdering the husband, they murdered the alien. And basically they took the husband and the wife and the guy and I think they took the wife and the young lover in, and they said, we're gonna have to wipe your memories. We're gonna explain. They explained their whole operation, but he says, "But your memories are gonna get wiped for the last 48 hours because they had drugs that could do that."
Right.
And then someone made a point, but sir, we've seen evidence of that they're gonna they were planning to murder her husband, and the guy running the UFO organization, that's out of our jurisdiction. We're not involved in that, and he let it go. And then the last scene of the episode, you see the wife by the husband's grave, and I think she regretted conspiring to murder.
And I really think that
it's very creepy. It's
when you get into science fiction like this. Science fiction is a way of dealing with potential real world things, or dealing with real world things in an allegorical kind of way, right? And if you don't mind me, stumping for my own channel a little bit, Friday I'm going to be doing a rewatch of Demolition Man, which is clearly something that deals with allegorical, science fiction using science fiction to deal with real world, socio-political things in an allegorical way, or in a I certainly want to say in a parody-ish sort of way, but unfortunately, they've taken parody and turned it into a how-to. So
it was all considered a joke back in the 90s when the movie came out.
Yeah, it's not so funny when it starts to become true.
This is an extreme scenario. It's not going to happen. And keep in mind that movie that you should put a link to that video that talked about it too in your description for a Friday stream, because that guy gives a very good description of. What do you call it? The smartest dumb movie ever made, which I thought was interesting. And that movie actually predicted a lot of just like internet type behaviors, even before the internet was really a big thing at the point when that movie came out. It was.
What's interesting is, and I'm going to bring it up now because chances are by the time Friday rolls around and a couple drinks, I probably won't remember. But one of the predictions it makes is the whole Taco Bell thing, and Hicks refers to the whole. What was it? Fast food wars or franchise wars, right? Yeah. Which I find funny because I could totally see that based on the time period it was written. But the reality is we have had corporate wars that have led to almost as equally crazy kinds of things. In the present day. Real quick, I did want to say hi. You did bring him up, but say hi to David Pensack for being here. He was asking a side topic that I don't think is entirely off topic, because it certainly does fall within our geeky, kind of thing, and he's really speaking to my love of toys and whatnot. So thanks for that, man. And Let's see, Auditor Dread. To answer your question, yeah, he said Auditor Dread. I don't think he's been on a stream. Have you been on, somebody else's stream? Like, I don't know, Wolf 10 Media's or someone else's?
We're just
kind of wondering because you've been around for a while and kind of surprised we haven't gotten you.
If you ever want to guest star on any of our streams, maybe we can fit you in some week or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or whoever else. As long as you're respectful, it's fine. Which I think everybody here tonight is. But
Actually, he says that, but then he's got me on, and I tend to really push those boundaries. So.
Oh, did you see the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Nika reveal? Is this like Secret of the Ooze figures? Is that what you're referring to? Is that like a...
Okay, so this is the second person to bring up the NECA figures. I do have to point out that when it comes to NECA figures, not a big fan of NECA. I have a couple... And usually it's only the cloth, the 9-inch cloth costumed figures, and usually it's the ones that I'm describing basically look like Mego figures because I'm into the Mego figures, and sometimes NECA gets the license that Mego doesn't. So, like for example, I've got the Jason figure and the Michael Myers figures because they got the license and Mego didn't. But everything else that I got, I've got the Mummy and all those Universal characters. Those all came out from Mego. I got. I'm looking and pointing, and I'm not even on camera, so you guys can't see me doing it. But you guys all know I've got these hanging over my left shoulder.
Yeah, we've seen them before, I think.
I've got Freddy Krueger and what do you call Pennywise, the Tim Curry version, and who's the little stabby doll? Chucky, thank you. Little stabby doll. Those all came out from Mego, so I've got those. I haven't really had a hankering to get the NECA versions when they come out, although right now there does seem to be a little bit of licensing war going on between NECA and Mego over those Chucky figures and the characters and whatnot, and I'm just kind of sitting back and eating popcorn and watching that because I am not like super invested in those kinds of things. And let's face it, I'm gonna gravitate towards the $20 Migos over the $40 NECAs. I mean, when you get right down to it.
Chucky is the little stabby doll though.
Is the little stabby doll. I'm using Netter speak there. Netter and I talk that way all the time when we can't think of what the little stabby doll guy. Oh, I know who you mean. I know.
I love that movie. I really do. Anyway. But we should probably get into the good old days. And
sure. We almost had a mini one right there talking about, action figures and Mego and stuff like that.
Maybe we will pick that up someday. But considering it's one of the topics we're talking about tonight, maybe this will ring a bell. One ring to rule them, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. Figure we haven't really done much talk.
Or if we look at it from the streaming services point of view, one show to divide a fan base, to push away the fans, and in the dark, push later. The woke.
That's later.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Man. No, there's other stuff going on there too. I might be bringing up some stuff that I don't know if other people have been talking about as regard to it, other problems. But
you know what? I'm sorry to save me a little typing. One more thing on the NECA. Yeah. Did want to respond to the last thing David said. Okay. I don't know how into these toys you are. This isn't, like I said, this isn't a huge thing for me. But Retro Blasting, Michael over at Retro Blasting, has done a lot of great videos about NECA. He's not a big fan either. I don't have much of a dog in the hunt, but apparently there are some big diehard NECA fans. If you are interested in those kinds of things, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. Go check out Retro Blasting's videos on that. But boy, I certainly would be open to talking more about it with you if you want to do that offline somewhere else or something. Absolutely. The collectible, the collector. Okay, yes. I'll take that eponym. I'd be happy to. But yes,
That'll be your Flash villain name.
Yeah, maybe. But I don't mind having a rogues gallery. I'd be good with that. But let's get into Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings is obviously a big topic right now. A lot of people are talking about it, a lot of YouTube channels. But what's been coming up, and you know how the YouTube algorithm works, you get a video that it's like, oh, you were interested in this video, you might be interested in this. And then you watch that, and then you just start getting flooded. And sometimes that's a good thing, because it has led me to be able to watch a number of videos about Tolkien lore, right? About, really, really, meticulous little things that I'd be into, like, the economy of the elves, or, what is I'm forgetting what it is. What did they smoke in their pipes? Some smoke weed or pipe weed. Yeah, what exactly is pipe weed?
Long bottom leaf, I think it's been called too. Yes.
Well, that's a specific type apparently of this pipe weed.
Yes.
See, this is what I find. I am not that big a fan of Lord of the Rings, but apparently there are fans that get into this kind of stuff, and I'm totally cool with that because I understand that kind of drive, because I've been that way with Star Wars. I've been that way with, particularly the Klingons in Star Trek and stuff. So when you start getting into those kinds of details, boy, I may not have that level of knowledge, but boy, I hold up my hand in respect to you, Yeah. What's my history with Lord of the Rings? I always knew about it growing up as a child. I mean, the books came out in the 50s, so of course they predate both of us, yeah.
Yeah, and when I was a kid, I did remember the Hobbit Rankin Bass cartoon. They also did a Return of the King Rankin Bass one too, if you recall.
Yes, and they did.
I always knew of these. Yeah,
they did. One of them was Rankin and Bass, and then there was another one that was like, who's that animator that did Fritz the Cat?
Ralph Bakshi. Yes.
Ralph Bakshi, yeah, because Rankin Bass didn't have the rights to everything. I don't know. It was real complicated, but I just remember watching those and loving them as a kid because, cartoons, but being a little bit bored when they'd start getting into that folk music, the greatest adventure that ever there was. I was just, okay, wake me up when we get past this. Then we get into DVDs, and I'm like, you know what, I can just fast forward a little bit.
Anyway... but anyway, let's talk about the books, and then we'll talk briefly about the movies. And then we're going to do this in under 10 minutes. I'm sure we'll cover everything.
Oh yeah, we'll cover this in under 10 minutes.
Here's what it was, though. I didn't get into the books until I think senior year of high school. I think I had to do a book report. You have to read a book every semester for my English class. I'm like, well,
you picked one of the Lord of the Rings? Oh, crap.
I picked
Why didn't you just do War and Peace while you were at it? Jeez, man.
No, I didn't. I picked The Hobbit.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
Hobbit, okay. And I actually read it front cover. It's like, wow, I really like this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, then the school library had the Lord of the Rings book, and I started reading the beginning of it. Of course, for some reason I didn't have a school library card. I don't know why they were petitioned to get one. Maybe I thought it was so much trouble. But for Christmas, I'm like, hey, can you get me the box set with The Hobbit and the 3 Lord of the Rings books, which is like it's like a paperback box. It wasn't horribly expensive, but I got that for Christmas as one of my gifts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was obsessed with those books, the lore. Like you have to give credit to Tolkien. I was completely absorbed in that world, especially in Fellowship of the Ring when it's starting out, and the ring wraiths are out looking for the ring, and Hobbiton, and it's actually rather terrifying because I did envision it to be like broad daylight, and these things are riding around in broad daylight looking for the ring, and I'm like, usually you think of horrible monsters, they come out at night. These things didn't care; they were out in the daytime. Yeah. That's what made that real creepy. And you're thinking the Shire, that's safe, and then it's not safe.
Right,
no place is safe from these things. And I just became obsessed with those books. I remember reading about the Mines of Moria later on. That was a fascinating sequence. And I remember at the time just kept thinking, well, how would they ever do this as a proper movie? And I kept thinking there would be an audience for it. there would never be you have to understand, back in the 90s, at least I want to say early to mid 90s, or even throughout the 90s, the mainstream audience was not into heroic fantasy. Am I wrong here?
Yeah, no, it was a genre that really hadn't been opened up yet to
they tried
the general
with Willow.
audiences.
Willow was the first big attempt because George Lucas was behind that.
Look, Willow was a good enough movie, but the problem was it was George Lucas doing it, and all of his fans were going, "The hell are you doing? Why aren't you doing another Star Wars movie? Damn it!" You know?
Yeah. Well,
not to mention, there's the whole Howard the Duck fiasco. So it's like,
Well, that's a whole nother. We've already done Howard the Duck in here. We'll do Willow someday. So.
Yeah, and as I recall, my thumbnail for you got you a lot of.
That is one of my most viewed videos. That
I know because of a little clickbaity click.
I think too, it had some of the most thumbs down of any of my videos. I'm wondering, well, why is it
probably because it's clickbait and they're expecting something
what were they
a little
thinking?
bit more on that. Yeah, like they're clicking on it because it's a picture of
Leah Thompson, right?
Leah Thompson's backside, and it's like, well, what did you expect? You were going to see more of Leah Thompson? Sorry, man. There's some movies out there that she did, but don't expect to find them on our channel, man.
So how are you introduced to the Lord of the Rings books?
So Lord of the Rings, I will admit that I was very low key introduced to it. So the Rankin and Bass
like
and
the
Bashki, cart. So I was aware of it, right?
Yeah.
Then going to the Renaissance fairs and stuff, you can't help but see different and hear different references to it. And you got, I mean, I had a buddy whose sister and brother-in-law were like really into the music and folk music and stuff, and his sister was just really hot, so I was totally into going to the Ren Fair with them and seeing the outfit she was wearing and all that kind of stuff. But then when I got into high school, kind of like you, I was, because I had already been playing Dungeons and Dragons, which that's a whole other story of how Dungeons and Dragons is clearly directly influenced by Tolkien. Right, and Lord of the Rings and stuff, and instead of calling them hobbits, they're halflings and so on and so forth.
Well, halfling, that word was used, I think, in one of the Lord of the Rings books. Like
yes,
there was another word for that race. Yeah,
but it was more like a derogatory term. Their word for themselves was hobbit, whereas halflings was the words that the races of men used in kind of a derogatory kind of way. Well, because halfling was not in any way a trademarked kind of word, D&D could get away with using it, but they couldn't use the term, hobbit. But the depictions of dwarves and elves and orcs and all of that stuff, very much taken from Tolkien. And I did not know this at the time, right? So then I get into high school and I'm kind of getting into this whole Dungeons and Dragons and kind of thing. And so I said to and you should appreciate this. I don't know if I ever mentioned this to you, Boomer, but I actually volunteered in the library in high school.
Okay.
That's how I spent my study hall. Was I would volunteer and I'd put away some books and learn the whole Dewey Decimal System as a result, and I'd still get to do my homework, but then I'd help with the checkout of people and so on and so forth, right? It's just what I did. Why did I do this? Because I loved books and I was a nerd? No, I thought one of the librarians was really hot. I just wanted to hang out with her as much as I could. But be that as it may, a little bit older, blonde. Again, I have a type, right? I asked for some recommendations, of something to read, and one of the librarians recommended this Dragon Riders of Pern or something like that.
Right.
Dude, I'm sorry, I couldn't get into it. It just wasn't my bag, and it wasn't really hitting it for me. But then a little bit later, as we were coming up on the release of the first Peter Jackson film, I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard so much about this Lord of the Rings thing. Maybe I should read this whole thing. Now, believe it or not, I read through the three, Fellowship of the Rings books before before going back and reading The Hobbit.
Right.
So I kind of came at it backwards.
That's fine.
But it was another one of those things where I knew there was a film project coming out. Let me read these books first before I see them. And was not disappointed. I was very, very glad I did. And were there differences? Sure there were. But again, kind of like what I've oftentimes said about The Watchmen. Yes, there were differences, but I totally can see why. Two different mediums. All the changes that were made in a way that was appropriate because of the medium they were trying to do. And then when the DVDs came out, and I was like, oh, he filmed a lot of stuff that, was in the book that obviously didn't make it to the cinema, but, it does still exist. So I was kind of good with that. And then I went back and read The Hobbit. And I was like, oh, okay, I see how this goes. I should have probably read this first. It's a smaller, less epic kind of story.
Lighter, more of an adventure story.
More child, something more for a younger audience kind of a thing.
There's still dark stuff in there, though.
Sure,
what I like about The Hobbit, it really is kind of a primer for that world. You do get to see the different races, how they act toward one another, what the goblins are like, which I guess later they started calling the orcs.
But what I love about it, this was a franchise film or a franchise series or whatever you want to call it before we started doing that kind of thing in entertainment, right? And we had somebody who put the thought into some very meticulous details about his races, their languages, how they interacted, their lore, and he kept constant notes. And look, guys, there is nothing contradictory in his lore. He had it all planned out. And he was the sole, writer. So there was no expanded universe, kind of stepping.
There is one thing I know he did change, though. In the original Hobbit book, I believe he gets the ring by playing a riddle game with Gollum, but it's friendlier. Whereas in the revised novel of The Hobbit, and also to match it with Lord of the Rings, it's more like he stole it from Gollum. Do you understand? Stole the ring from Gollum.
Right.
I have not read that original passage, so I don't know. I know that he did kind of retconned it later on. In fact, if you read a lot of copies of Lord of the Rings, we'll have Tolkien explain. But actually, that is not what happened in The Hobbit. This is what really happened, and so he did explain it.
Yeah.
That's the one thing he changed because he thought it would work better.
I do know that there were notes that he had made in things like the Silmarillion and the Unfinished Tales or whatever, where he had a thought about relationship between characters, and then in later things decided not to stick with that. And but that's fine, because again, we're talking about things that are like his notes and his thoughts and what he was planning to do,
not necessarily
as opposed to what he actually got around to doing.
Any writer will tell you they go through dozens, if not hundreds, of drafts of any work that they're working on. And what you start out with can be very different than what you end up with, and I understand that.
Now, you could draw a correlation to, there was a lot of things that George Lucas had planned to do for Star Wars, and then completely changed his mind and did something very different. The problem with George Lucas is he's got selective memory, and he'll go back and say, oh, well, this was what I planned all along. Yeah, but in this interview that I have printed in my Bantha tracks here, that's not what you said. You said da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Memory's a funny thing.
yeah. I mean, they these days we like to say the internet, remembers, but I'm sorry, the print remembers too. And these old Bantha tracks that came from the Lucas fan club. Look, did you lie then, or are you lying now? They can't. They're not both. They're mutually exclusive here, George. But I can't think of any examples like that with Tolkien. He was very consistent.
And that's the only jarring one, was how Bilbo got the ring, and even that he basically. I'm going to rewrite that passage for subsequent volumes of The Hobbit, and I'm going to explain it in this copy of Lord of the Rings. And people like that version, I think, better.
I would also say that Tolkien, You could argue that he did self-insert characters. Now, on the other hand, I would point out, I think every author, I don't think there's a single author who's ever written a narrative story that doesn't have arguably at least one character they think of as their self-insert. But let's face it, the whole job of being an author is that every single character you create is in some way, shape, or form self-insert, because it's part of what it means to create characters, right? Yeah. But put that aside, Tolkien has identified his self-insert character, and it is not a main character. It is not Gandalf, it is not Bilbo, it is not Frodo,
I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know. Elrond?
No, it's not an elf character at all.
Okay.
No,
okay.
It's not a powerful character, it's a humble character.
Oh, okay. Who?
He is identified. He said, if there is, he hasn't specifically said that it's a self-insert character, but if there was an insert character, it would have to be Samwise Gamgee's.
Okay, that makes sense.
Doesn't it? Doesn't it make perfect sense then when you think about it? And he is a heroic character, but he is not the hero. He is not the main hero, and by no means by no stretch of the imagination, could you call him a Mary Sue character.
No.
It's absolutely not the case. Now, he admits that the Shire and the Hobbits and whatnot are kind of an idealized world that he wishes that he could live in, and very much influenced by like
his child
Wales,
right?
by Wales, you know,
right.
An idealized version of Wales, right? But by no means is it, you know, so idealized as to not have a story, because clearly it does. And I've heard a lot of people say, you know, and it's been argued by Tolkien himself, this was not his intent, saying that there's clear World War I and World War II and allegories and so on and so forth. And he said that was not his intent. But I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. He may not have done it intentionally, but it would be foolish, even for him, to not realize that there was probably some real world influences that worked their way in, because it's his life experience.
Right,
you know, if it didn't, you know, he'd be lying to himself.
Yeah.
But I think to put so fine a point on it as, you know, this historical event and this historic battle was represented in this. No, that's probably.
Or the ring represents the nuclear bomb and other nonsense.
Whatever. Yeah, no, that's way too fine a point. I think what's better to do is to realize that he created a very timeless story. And when you do that, you make a timeless tale that anyone can project any historical event onto, and it works, right? There's a trick that is done in theater and in other visual arts where you take a mannequin that's got a blank face and project someone speaking, okay, onto it, and it looks very three-dimensional and very realistic, and their lips are moving, and you're like, ooh, that's so cool. But it's a very simple trick, and it's actually more two-dimensional than you realize. And I think that's what he did. He created the mannequin, and you can project anyone's face onto it speaking, because it works that way, you know. And that's what the Lord of the Rings is. I would actually encourage, I don't know if what prompted this topic for you, Boomer, was what I'm about to share, but Midnight's Edge literally just put out a video talking about, there was a writer who back in the 1950s wanted to do a film adaptation. And the script of it's never been released, although it exists in the Tolkien archive. He was not happy with it. He said this is clearly somebody who did not read, my books. He kind of skimmed through them and is working off of faulty memories. And Midnight's Edge draws the correlation to what's going on that we're going to be talking about later in the show. But he had a very strong opinion about, look, there's what I wrote and there's what people want to believe. If you want to do some kind of adaptation of my stuff, it better be faithful to what I actually did. Otherwise, don't put my name on it.
Yeah, no, and I think we're learning a lesson, especially now, about how important it is for authors and maybe even people who hold the author's estate to make sure that the integrity of the author's work is maintained. We're going to get into that later. I could talk about Lord of the Rings all evening, but maybe some other time.
So much for getting it in just 10 minutes, right?
No, some other time we'll have to talk about the Jackson movies as well. But for now, we'll leave it with the books. Books are wonderful. The books stand on their own as their own thing. But I did want to address Autodrop. Go ahead.
Good. That's what I was going to ask. I was hoping you weren't just flashing it up and we weren't going to touch on it.
I did see the movie Tolkien. It was interesting. It's funny. You learn a lot about his college life and that, about how he was kind of floundering in school until he discovered a love of languages, I think. And Derek Jacobi's in that as like the language process. Tell you what, I'll let you into the program. I will need like a 20-page paper on such and such. I don't know, like some kind of ancient languages. When do you need it by? Tomorrow. It's like, do you want to be in this program or not? You better get it to me tomorrow night. But go ahead. You were saying, though.
Well, no, I was going to say, I personally haven't seen that movie, but I know you've mentioned it before.
Not bad, yeah.
And
they plays Tolkien.
I honestly don't know enough about the man to know, how historically accurate it is, although I have to assume it's probably pretty good. But that is one of the things I admire a great deal about him, is his understanding of language, his love of language.
Yeah.
So when he creates the languages of the elves and the dwarves and the hobbits, and even the colloquial speech of the humans in Lord of the Rings, he's given it a great deal of thought and been very realistic about it. And it's one of the things I really love. And that's partly why I can relate to that, because of my, whole love for, the Klingon culture and the language that was created. It was created by another linguist, Dr. Mark Okrand, who, he, is at least as knowledgeable about languages as Tolkien was. And he did the exact same thing when he's thinking of a fictional language for a fictional race. He applies, real world concepts and, says, well, what is the culture of the language? Because the two are absolutely inseparable. You cannot separate language and culture. You must understand the culture to correctly apply the language. And if you're going to translate between any language and another, you've got to understand the cultural differences. Because if I use some idiom in English and then wanted to translate it into Klingon or Orcish or Elvish or whatever, what does the idiom mean to an English speaker first in their culture? And how does that translate to another culture? Because heck, any Klingon speaker will tell you, just the words please and thank you don't translate in Klingon, because they don't use those niceties in regular Klingon vernacular. The idea of saying please and thank you are not common. That is just something that is translated from English as far as a Klingon is concerned.
Gotcha. That's interesting.
Anyway, so how would you say please? Well, a Klingon wouldn't. He would just say, what do you want? Nuknech. And that does not mean please or, how are you doing or hello. It literally means what do you want? And that's not rude. That's just perfunctory. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, this reminds me, I think there was an episode of King of the Hill where the Hills got Laotian neighbors, right? They were from
from Laos. Sure.
From Laos, and they were Laotian. And And I think Peggy's like, we have to be nice to them because like Hank wasn't necessarily getting along with this. In their language, they're like 100 words for this, but not one for friend or something. And she's like, we have to. I forgot what she was saying, but then of course the wife of the Laotian neighbor, she ends up making a better version of her Apple Brown Betty, and then also she starts making fun of what is it, Peggy's shoes and whatnot.
Oh.
It was just a funny episode.
Well, and I'll give you another real world example. Especially if you're one of those people that talks about biblical translations. Well, many of the books of the Bible come from Greek, and Greek has at least 3 words for love. So if you translate a word into love in English, in an English version of the Bible, well, you got to look back at the Greek and say, well, which word for love did they mean? Because there's a different word for romantic love, brotherly love, and the kind of awe-inspired love that you would have for God. It really puts a very different slant and perspective on that conversation that Peter and Jesus have when he says, Peter, do you love me? Because he asks him 3 times, but he uses 2 different words for love. So the last time he asks him, he's asking him something different than the first 2 times. Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you even really love me this way, let alone what you're saying to me? It's shades of meaning that are very, very interesting. And that's why I find language to be so interesting. And I know that Tolkien had the same love for language.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And he, like I said, he did his own translations of Beowulf. He did a translation of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. He was a fascinating figure in English literature. And like I said, we'll talk more about this. Maybe we'll address the movies someday too. We'll talk about the Peter Jackson films because I think they deserve credit too. But the hour, what did Saruman say? The hour is late and Gandalf the Grey. He had some quote. I remember. So I'm thinking, oh, Hank, are you Chinese or Japanese? Khan, I'm from Laos. Hank, so are you Chinese or Japanese? Yeah. There are many countries in Asia, not just China and Japan. Okay, anyway. Moving on, though, we have news to talk about, and we have some interesting news tonight. It's not all, stick your head in a pot of boiling oil, but we have the Book of Boba Fett final viewership 36% higher than the Mandalorian Season 2 closer.
Yes, everyone want to freak out about that? We're going to have a bunch of arguments in the chat about this, and
hopefully not. But I'll read briefly. Season 1 finale of Lucasfilm's The Book of Boba Fett checked out 1.5 million households, according to Samba TV, from the show's Wednesday to Sunday run. It says something that Samba TV is the one giving us the correct figures on this stuff, right? I kept
the Samba does seem to be the ones that we can get streaming numbers from. That's the thing. Yeah. But, if you follow Valiant Renegade, he'll point out that, there's a lot of apples, oranges type of comparisons going on here because there hasn't been yet any standardization to how we put numbers to streams, whether it's how many people watched, how many houses, how many hours and minutes of viewing was done. These are all different metrics, and they could mean different things, but I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, since the launch of Disney Plus, per Samba TV, the biggest season finale viewership to date for a series belongs to Marvel's Loki Season 1. This is making me confusing. Are people not tuning in for the middle episode? They're going straight to the season finale?
Well, I would argue that...
Or are they watching the season finale more than once, maybe?
It could be that. Yeah. It could also be that if they watched at the beginning and they kind of fell away, but then they hear something big about what's going on, they tune in to see how it turned out. So it could, you're right. It could be like someone reading the last chapter of a book real quick, to see... where this is going. Maybe then they decide whether or not it was worth going back and spending the time on the rest of the show, sometimes.
I don't know. I kept hearing everybody seeing when this show up that this was this big ratings disaster for Disney Plus, but I'm not seeing the evidence of that here. And I don't have a dog in this fight. I've never seen this show, so I'm just saying. I know Troy.
Which one, Loki or
no, Boba Fett.
Boba Fett. Well, I'll tell you something else about Book of Boba Fett, and I kind of talked about it, with you on Friday. I didn't put this fine a point on it, but I will for this topic. Regardless of what the streaming numbers say about Book of Boba Fett, that's not where they're getting their money from Book of Boba Fett. The money's really coming from the action figures.
The merchandise. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why they're re-releasing Cad Bane. They've already announced that. I told you a couple weeks ago the value of that Clone Wars, or was it Clone Wars or Rebels? Maybe it was a Rebels figure of Cad Bane kind of shot up during the Book of Boba Fett when he was introduced as a character. And so his value kind of went up on the secondary market. I was able to get him at cost by going through Tungori, because Tungori pulled out some more stock from wherever they get it from, and re-released it. I've got that on its way, and they've already announced they're going to do another release of it. Now, they haven't said whether or not it's going to be a reissue of the animated version, what card back it's going to be on, or if it's going to be retooled to be more like the live action appearance and specifically on a Book of Boba Fett card back. But the sky's the limits here, and there's a reason that they're bothering to do this, because people are buying those toys,
So you don't know where Tungori gets these figures from. Can I pose a theory?
It's probably the same one I have, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my theory is much in the same way if a man's deceased wife passes away or whatnot, you bury her with her favorite necklace. Well, if a child passes away, you bury the child with the favorite action figure, and then later on, grave robbers dig up those bodies and steal the figures and sell them off to Tungori. So you better think about where you're getting these figures from, because
that's not
dead
too.
Child may at your door, rapping on the door. You're gonna
that.
I've been watching too much Creep Show lately.
That's not too far though from what some have speculated. There is some that believe that either Tungori works for the plant in China that makes the action figures, and they're taking some off the top, or even Bosk's Bounty, one of the bigger toy channels, has speculated that they might just be factory rejects, because every now and again he'll get one that's got like 2 left feet or something like that. I don't know. I haven't had that problem myself, but he's bought many more of these figures than I have, so he's more likely. And I'll see some what might actually have been defects as far as Hasbro is concerned, but I just assumed it was like, okay, so it's not perfect. Okay, well, maybe that is a factory defect. These all come off card, so they're loose. Sometimes they don't have 100% of their accessories, but it's an option for those of us that don't really care about collecting on mint on card type stuff. Really just want them for a diorama. I don't need the secondary handgun that goes in the holster. I just want the big one that goes on his back or whatever. That kind of a thing. But anyway, here my point is though that the Book of Boba Fett figures are selling like hotcakes. And, I just did on Friday, I showed you guys my Razor Crest from Mandalorian. So if Star Wars isn't pulling in numbers as far as streaming, it's at least pulling in toy sales. And that's where the money is for them. And they're happy with that.
Right. It's, as a yogurt said in Spaceballs, merchandising, right? Isn't that what he said?
And what's funny about the funniest jokes are the ones that are based on truth.
Yes.
And what he says,
smart guy. He knows
what Mel Brooks said in that movie was dead on. Star Wars made more money than any film up to that point, right? As far as a movie. But where the real money came from wasn't the box office sales. It was the toy sales.
Yep.
And that's, even George Lucas has said this. He has basically said, he made his deals with the studios based on keeping the marketing rights, and that's where all the money came from, was from the toys. You know, he said that, and that's even why when he got to the Ewoks, he figured, plush Ewoks might do better than what do you call it? Than Wookiees. So let's do that. But then he found out that plush Wookiees actually sold real well too. So he put out a bunch of Chewbacca plushies. That's where he made the money from.
When I was a child, I had an R2D2 plushie.
I'm not surprised.
They made an R2D2 when you could press the middle and the nose it did like a squeak, not an electronic beep. But I remember that. Not his nose, his little eye thing, whatever I called it.
We could do a whole good old days about Star Wars toys too. Maybe we have actually. I don't know.
We could do one about Star Wars plushies.
But the important point was, I think that, and this is probably something that I know that Stephanie Janachek's mentioned this. I don't know if all the other YouTubers have, but let's put a fine point on why did the last episode of Book of Boba Fett that so many people were panning and picking on do better than The Mandalorian. There was an expectation. There was an expectation that just like, they didn't watch the last episode of Mandalorian because they didn't know Luke Skywalker was going to show up. Right. So now they showed up and they're like, what's going to happen? Is Han Solo going to be in the last episode? I had predicted it, right? I'd even said, well, look, it was mentioned on IMDb Pro and there's a bunch of other things that are pointing towards it being there. But then we get the other rumor that there was last minute changes being done. And it's starting to look more and more like they actually had planned to have Han Solo in that last episode and decided, you know what? No, because there was a lot of people that didn't enjoy parts of Book of Boba Fett going through it. And let's face it, this is Boba Fett's show, not Han Solo's. Maybe we just do this thing. We'll save Han Solo for something else. But there is world building going on here that is going to involve Luke and Han and Leia going forward.
You know what I was expecting to happen? I was expecting like a little Kylo Ren to be running around, the midship, and then Luke
I can guarantee you.
And then Luke takes him aside and slaps him in the face, and then Han walks in and says, "What's going on here?" Oh, I gave him a bit of a slap because he was horse around. Then Han goes over, makes a fist, says, "Little Kylo Ren says, you want some more?"
That's right. We need some of that. That's right.
It's a parody of a scene from Mad Men. I just thought,
it makes perfect sense. No, I can guarantee
make
you
our
that
heroes as awful as possible.
Just like
they're not doing that. That's my joke. Okay.
I get what you're saying. Just like they are making money hand over fist off of Grogu figures and Boba Fett. Boba Fett has, I swear, I kid you not, they've put out 4 Boba Fett figures from the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. Different styles, different accessories, all kinds of stuff. And they're selling like hotcakes. But you know what isn't selling is action figures from the sequel trilogy. So you're not going to be seeing any Kylo Ren in these anytime. No, but I am using that as an example to bring it back to exactly what we were talking about. But yeah, we will see building to something that you can guarantee that money is going to continue to be made in the toys. I may have to expand my toy videos because of this, in my opinion.
Well, Stephanie Janachek also made a point that a lot of certain channels that we won't name here were making a point. We're talking up the wazoo about the Rey Skywalker trilogy, which is not going to happen because it's a Screamer article. But they were not even talking about this. The thing is,
we don't even need to mention channels because they're almost all talking about it. So you all know, even channels we don't even know about, you probably know that are talking about this stuff. And what's sad is these kinds of videos don't age well. Right. I mean, I happen to be a YouTuber kind of like Viva Fry. I will say what I think, and if I'm proven wrong, I will accept that. Because you got to deal with reality. But I think there's a lot of people putting out a bunch of stuff because they know it'll get them clicks in the short run, but in the long run, it makes them look like fools. And I think anybody who thinks that Rey is coming back and she's getting a trilogy and all this, you're smoking some really wacky weed. Okay, the main character of a series that didn't make money. And if you try to argue with me that it made money, you just do not understand how finances work, how business works, and how the entertainment industry works. The sequel trilogy did not make money, okay? For the same reason that Book of Boba Fett is making all of its money off of toy sales, those movies didn't pull a profit. And they're not going to put more good money after bad trying to make Rey a thing. Quit trying to make Fetch a thing. It's not going to be a thing, okay? For those of you that remember 80s girly films.
I'll have to look that up later. I'm not curious. Disney names executive to oversee metaverse strategy. You excited? Let's talk about it.
I am about as excited about the metaverse as I am about Bitcoin. I don't understand it. I don't know why I should care.
You're going to become part of the metaverse whether you want to.
I am not plugging into any friggin' Matrix, dude.
It's going to happen. You're going to have to get a thing.
Nobody's sticking me with anything at this point. I'm telling you.
The Walt Disney Company has appointed an executive to oversee its metaverse strategy, according to an email Disney chief executive Bob Chapek sent to staff Tuesday and seen by Reuters. Mike White, an executive in the media and entertainment distribution group, has been named to the new role of Senior Vice President of Next Generation Storytelling and Consumer Experiences, where he will help define how many consumers experience Disney's coming metaverse. He will work alongside Disney's creative teams. For nearly 100 years, our company has defined and redefined entertainment by leveraging technology to bring stories to life in deeper, more impactful ways, Chapek wrote in the email to staff, adding, "Today we have an opportunity to connect those universes and create an entirely new paradigm for how audiences experience and engage with our stories." In other words, Bob Chapek, don't really know what the metaverse is either. Okay, I'm sorry. I have to say, I'm sorry.
I will say this though I will say this though. We've said a number of times on here that Bob Chapek he's the money guy, right?
Yeah.
So it would be completely irresponsible of him not to at least begin exploring whatever this new thing is.
They have to be prepared in case it becomes a thing. Yes, I understand this. Chapek announced last November that Disney is poised to embark on journey to the metaverse, which he said would advance storytelling, combining elements of physical and digital world. He describes the metaverse as the quote-unquote next great storytelling frontier and part of the company's strategic priorities. White has 25 years of technology and leadership experience before joining Disney in 2011. He served as chief technology officer for Apollo Group and earlier spent a decade at Yahoo, holding positions of increasing responsibility, including director of strategy and technology. Okay, so you excited?
No, but
okay.
No, it's news. It's happening. It's good. Like I said, Disney has to explore this thing. Daniel Heron says it's like, I don't know what for a metaverse. Oh, it's like $4,500 for a headset. Metaverse headset. How many do you want me to put you down for? See, that's just it. I mean, I'm getting the impression this is supposed to be like this immersive, Ready Player One type of sorts of things. And I'm like, that's great. I honestly don't have time or money for this kinds of stuff. So if it's happening and it's making Disney money, that's great. I'll check out whatever it is when they put it out on the metaverse version of DVD. Otherwise, I'll pass.
Oh, you're such a boomer. Anyway,
look, I'll tell you something else. They can't even figure out this whole space tour, space cruise thing. If they can't get that right, I'm very concerned about what they're going to do in their metaverse.
Oh yeah, the Star Wars hotel thing. Which,
yeah.
Well, that's interesting. That'd be a great YouTube video to do if you could actually go into it and maybe rag on it. But
yeah.
Social justice activist Sam Maggs announced that she quote unquote quit Knights of the Old Republic. Now, from what I heard, the quote unquote is Troy here, adding the quotes himself. So
yes, I did specifically
well,
say
we don't know.
I'm adding the quotes.
I will have to take people up. Let's read.
Mm-hmm.
Social justice activist Sam Maggs, a former writer at the Mary Sue, announced she quit working on the Knights of the Old Republic remake. Maggs previously announced her involvement in the series back in September when the game was announced by Aspire Media, tweeting, "It's actually happening." The video accompanying the tweet shows her editing her Twitter profile to include Knights of the Old Republic remake. In subsequent tweets, she added, "Could not be more honored and excited to be part of the incredible team at Aspire Media to remake one of my all-time favorite games." However, on her website, Maggs now claims she quit after working on the game for 9 months. She wrote, "I was on this project for like 9 months in 2021, and then I quit. You're going to be okay. If you email or message me about it, I won't see it. My filters are really good." That's a little strange. Okay. The revelation appears to confirm a rumor from YouTuber Mr. Matty Plays. Back in January, Mr. Matty Plays noted her contract has expired. She's moved on to work at Wizards of the Coast to be a narrative lead. Hey, that's kind of your neck of the woods.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. She's flocking with her brood. Let me put it that way.
He added her role was very minor compared to others that worked there. Indeed, Maggs announced on Twitter in November 2021 that she joined Wizards of the Coast. She wrote, "Job news. Today I'm joining the brilliant folks at Wizards of the Coast on their digital publishing and licensing team as narrative lead." So I'm trying to figure out what the takeaway is from this. Was the original role she had on Knights of the Old Republic not as big as we had previously thought? Like, we thought she was like a head writer or something, and then maybe she wasn't?
I can't speak to that specifically, but let's back up and recall that we did talk about this back when they first announced the Knights of the Old Republic,
and I was saying the sky was falling.
We were all very, very bothered by this, especially the mention that this Sam Maggs was, going to be working on. We're like, you don't go out there and say, "I loved it so much and I'm so glad to remake it." Well, if you loved it, why are you remaking it? And it's very clear that they were going to change some fundamental things about it to fit her particular flavor of the way she thinks things ought to be.
Yes, and I was expecting that to be happening full on in this remake. I was thinking that.
What had I said at the time, and what have I been saying since then about
all money?
All follow the money. I said I honestly think that as things are changing, Bob Chapek's taken over, and I'm forgetting who the new one who was taken over for Iger. You're putting all the money people in charge, and then we get these announcements that Chapek says, we are going to make sure that the audience is our North Star, and we're going to do all the things that. Oh yeah, exactly. Be her favorite. She said in the old tweet, while she liked the game, it was not her cup of tea. Yeah, I mean, you go back and forth on this. You don't fundamentally change something that is your favorite.
That reminds me of one Kevin Smith who said, "Oh, big time He-Man fan."
Big time He-Man fan. Right. Exactly.
Year when it was on, and
but yeah, so we see it happening, right? And we already see all the people that are being replaced at very high levels at Disney, right? And they are clearly focusing on putting story and fan love first, because that's where the money is. Not for any altruistic reasons, not for any ideological reasons, but because that's where the money is. And that happens to line up with our values, right? And so, what's good is good. And what's the Gordon Gekko line? Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
Is good.
And in this case, that's absolutely true. And here's another example of it, okay? We got the Wakoso who is quitting. That's why I put it in quotes. She says she's quitting. She got quit. She got the professional version of Epstein. She was told, "You know what? You can quit now. Please quit now.
Maybe you can,
or we'll quit you."
Line something else up at Wizards of the Coast. I thought it was interesting though, because I knew her husband had worked on one of the other EA Star Wars games. I think it was the Not the most recent one, the one that came out, the one about the Jedi Order. I forget its name already, but I think he had worked on that, and I thought maybe he had an in, and that's how she got into this remake. But I don't know what happened there. Yeah,
it could be because it really has seemed like all of these people, whether it's the story group or the Wakosos doing the video games and whatnot, it does seem to be a very incestuous group. I know somebody, I'm dating someone, I'm sleeping with somebody, I get a job. And when the higher ups start to hear about this, they start going, yeah, no, that doesn't make us money. Okay, I don't care who you're sleeping with. You don't hire people for that reason. You hire them because they're the best in the business and they're going to make us money. If they're not, y'all go.
yeah. Our address says, I'm altering the deal. Pray I don't alter any further EA to mags. Well, here's the weird thing. I don't think EA has anything to do with this Knights of the Old Republic. I think that this is a Sony Interactive Studios game, or at least it's being funded by them, because I think it's a PlayStation exclusive. Don't quote me. No, it's not, because it's Aspire. That's the name of the studio. But I believe it's PlayStation exclusive. For how long, I don't know. It's all confusing. I don't know who is currently running with the Star Wars license.
It honestly doesn't matter. The fact is, it's a Star Wars license, and Disney is asserting control here. They are coming in to whomever the licensee is and saying, yeah, we've seen some pretty negative things in the media and in the social media, and this needs to change. You know, we don't want to see a bunch of woke bullshit. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're not using exactly that kind of language in the boardrooms.
I'm very curious. We'll see how the final product of this KOTOR remake when it comes out. It might be a good sign.
I'm not saying that this means it's going to be okay. I'm just saying this does bode well. This is a good sign.
There's no reason for it not to be okay. They already have the entire game written. They can use new and improved game mechanics on it to make it a worthy remake of the original. Will that happen? I don't know, but there's no reason it has to be bad. That's what I'm saying.
You go. That is what you just said, Boomer, is the other shoe dropping, right? The first shoe is you see the Wokoso walking out the door. Whether she's quit or she's frog marched out, doesn't matter. She left the project. The other side of it is if you got a bunch of other people that want to keep their jobs, they just go, so really all we need to do is take the game that already exists and make the graphics look better? Done.
Yeah, and
done.
Tweak the gameplay a bit.
Yeah.
Oh, look. This is why I'm the Grand Gamer. Oh, thank you, Auditor Dread. Well, basically what happened, why I did more research on this was because I think Stephanie, Janet, Jack, and Troy were thinking I know it all about the games. I'm like, I am anything but a gamer, know-it-all. I know a lot, but I'm not a know-it-all. And I decided I need to do research on this, and that's when I discovered.
And y'all will notice that we have more and more gaming articles in each episode. Just saying, that's not me pushing that. I'm just putting it in the notes.
I'm just looking for articles. Trust me, if there was other stuff out there, I'd be picking it. But John Williams returns to Star Wars universe with Obi-Wan Kenobi theme. What's this? The return of John Williams to Star Wars?
He's that music guy, right?
Yes, he's written some scores.
I'm just trying to tweak Birdman.
Oh man! More than 2 years after completing his 9th Star Wars movie, composer John Williams is returning to the Jedi fold with a theme for Obi-Wan Kenobi. Variety has learned. Williams has written the musical signature for the continuing adventures of the character played by Ewan McGregor, airing on Disney Plus beginning May 25th. He recorded last week with a Los Angeles orchestra under tight security, sources say. It is a coup for both Lucasfilm and Disney, considering the 5-time Oscar winner rarely composes for television. His last theme was for a weekly dramatic series was Amazing Stories in 1985, although he has written 2 for PBS series Masterpiece Theater in 2000 and Great Performances in 2009. And his news and Olympics themes, written decades ago, continue to air on NBC. Williams' Star Wars scores are legendary. He won an Oscar for the original in 1997 and received nominations for 5 of the sequels: The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi in 1983, followed by The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker in 2015, 2017, and 2019. He also wrote for Solo, a Star Wars story. This is interesting. I didn't know this.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote the theme for Solo, Star Wars story in 2018 and Disneyland's Star Wars Galaxy's Edge theme park in 2019. The latter won him his most recent Grammy, one of 6 awards for his Star Wars compositions over the years. Williams, who turned 90 in February, is remarkably busy. He's composing the scores for Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans, due out in November, and for the 5th Indiana Jones movie due next year. He will conduct the Vienna Philharmonic on March 12th to 13th, the Philadelphia Orchestra April 19th and 21st, and the Pittsburgh Symphony on April 25th, Los Angeles Philharmonic September 2nd and 4th at the Hollywood Bowl. Williams scored the original Obi-Wan Kenobi as played by Alec Guinness, with a theme that became better known as that of the Force, the spiritual philosophy belief of the Jedi Knights in the Old Republic, as well as the composer explained in 1977. Perhaps best remembered for its use in the throne room scene that concluded the first Star Wars film, and which Williams has often performed in concert. It is not known if he has reprised that or possibly a theme from the George Lucas directed. Williams scored prequels that feature McGregor, The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith from 2000, or written an entirely new piece. The TV stories are said to take place after the events of Sith. No word on who's going to be scoring the 6 individual episodes, which are believed to be recording in London. Okay, so a different person composing the score to the series. It's sort of like how Batman the Animated Series, it kind of basically used the Danny Elfman Batman theme from the movie for the main theme of the story, but not an original composition score for the rest of the series, made by Shirley Walker. But we'll see. What do you think, huh?
Yeah. So, well, first, let me acknowledge a new listener in the chat right now, Ambassadorial Wing. I was on his channel the other day, and I was talking you up, so that's probably why he's here. So let's put on a good show. You know, maybe we can get another subscriber here.
Definitely. Welcome, Ambassadorial Wing. Everyone subscribe to his channel. He's got good stuff. They were doing.
Yeah, I just dropped the link, and
they were doing a Babylon 5 talk the other week.
Yep, go back and check out. I just did a chat on his channel talking about The Abyss. Great 80s film. Yeah. Huh? No, James Cameron. I thought you said it was a Hammer movie. I'm like, what?
No, Cameron movie.
I was gonna say, no, I think you're talking about the wrong Abyss, man.
The Hammer movie, the things in the ocean would have been eating people or something. This is, to be a different movie.
Yeah, and there'd been a lot of like weird colored blood, right? Exactly.
It'd be like in the 1800s. It'd be like the old scuba gear, right, with the big.
Yeah, Mary Elizabeth Master Antonio would have gone topless. Oh, wait a minute, she did. Never mind. Okay, forget it. Let's go. Right. Let's get back to.
She was made Marion in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Yes, she was.
But was. Williams. Hey, good on him. The man is still he's a living legend. Let's be honest.
Yeah. You know, and Ambassador Ling even said, yeah, age hasn't slowed him down any. But there is something very key I want to point out here. I don't know if you guys all remember, but back after he did Solo: A Star Wars Story, he specifically said in an interview he was done with Star Wars. We may have even reported on it. I'm not sure. But he didn't say it directly, but he very strongly implied that he didn't like where Star Wars was going and how he was getting feedback on it. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. The fact that he's coming back for this actually says quite a bit. What changed, man? Well, I know what changed, and most fans do know what changed. But yeah, I mean, you'll see more and more people coming. You know, we've seen Mark Hamill and you know, if rumors are true, Harrison Ford, and who knows how many others saying, yeah, I said I was done with Star Wars, but I'll come back to kind of ensure the legacy of George Lucas because it's been so marred by other people.
The big one will be Lucas himself if he comes back and publicly endorses some of the new Disney stuff they're doing, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Nintendo is... Oh, are we done with this?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
moving right along and feeling fancy free, except if you're a Nintendo fan, because this is not a good day for you.
Yeah.
But this is actually predictable, and I'll explain why. But I'll read this. Nintendo is closing the 3DS and Wii U eShops and has no plans to offer classic content in other ways. Remember a few months back when I said that Sony was closing down their shops for what was
Yeah.
PlayStation 3?
Yeah, you did.
And PlayStation Vita, and Nintendo is doing the same. Nintendo had done this years ago with the Wii. I remember they said, hey, you got a few months, purchase what you want, and then you can't do it anymore, and about a year later you won't be able to download anything either. That's what they basically said.
Right.
Nintendo has announced the discontinuation of the 3DS eShop and the Wii U eShop as of late March 2023. You'll still be able to re-download games and downloadable content, receive software updates, and play online beyond the state, the ability to purchase games will no longer be possible. New content will no longer be released on these digital storefronts. Credit cards can no longer be used to add funds as of the 23rd of May. Nintendo eShop card funds can no longer be added to the eShop accounts as of the 29th August 2022. So if you have one of those Nintendo cards you want to add funds to your eShop, you won't be able to do that past August 22nd. Basically like their version of an iTunes card.
Sure.
Right? However, downloaded codes can still be redeemed until late March 2023. And they were asked, we currently have no plans to offer classic content in other ways. So I need to explain to you a little bit how Nintendo runs their digital content storefronts. I talked a bit about Sony. Nintendo is probably the worst company. I think one YouTuber once made a comment that Nintendo treated their, instead of being like iTunes, they're like Columbia House when Columbia House was trying to sell digital music.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
then.
Basically, you buy a game on for instance, if I were to buy a game on the 3DS, on my 3DS system, which is their last portable game console before the Switch came out, it's available on that console that you own, that console only. If you get another 3DS, you can't put it on both. They do have the ability where you can at least transfer the rights to it over to another 3DS console, so you can put it on a new one if you want, but then it won't stay on your old one. They don't allow you to have multiple copies of things. They're kind of draconian with this, and they're not going to change. I know people are wagging their finger at them. They're Nintendo. They march to the beat of their own drummer. They're going to do this. The trouble is, though, this is not good for game preservation.
Right.
If there are going to be games that were available on the 3DS that were electronic only, there weren't physical releases of these games made, that just will not become available unless Nintendo or whatever third party decides to re-release these in some other form on some other system, which does happen, but you're being able to purchase another copy of this. And I know you're about what you're about to say, your usual tagline.
No, I wasn't even thinking it, because I know you've just pointed out an example where you can't own physical media. But I will say, though, be very wary of any business scheme, any platform or whatever that prevents you from owning physical media, because this is the kind of thing that can happen to you.
Yeah, and the Video Game History Foundation, they were not too pleased with this. Now, it's funny how no one seemed to bat an eye when they shut down the Wii eShop, which was the first time they were doing it. And I got to tell you, I don't want to think about the amount of money I spent on the Wii eShop or the Wii store, because they offered classic games for download, and I could get like an NES library on there for $5 a game. I get Neo Geo games on there for $10, and I know you think $10 may be a bit of money for a digital game, but keep in mind, physical cartridges for the Neo Geo cost like $500 each back in the day. So
and I was going to say, I am not real quick to say anything about the value of a game, because honestly, if you get enough enjoyment out of it, then who am I to say what's too expensive, right?
See, with me, at least with digital movies, I have bought them over the years. I treat it like, is this as cheap as it would cost me to rent? For instance, if I buy a digital movie off of Vudu, I have to be fully aware that there could come a day where this is not available to me anymore. Yeah. It is always a possibility. But then I say to myself, did this movie I purchase, what did it cost me? $5? That's what it would have cost me if I wanted to rent it to watch it. So
and I suppose
that's that way.
Yeah, and it's not too dissimilar than when I look at a movie and go, do I really want to purchase this DVD, Or do I just want to watch it on a streaming service and forget
because of the room you have on your shelves and stuff.
Well,
the stuff
there's
you really
that.
care about, though, you need to own physically. We've said this all the time on here. And I've tried to own physical copies of games as well. It's funny, after I bought some of these virtual console games cheap, later on I still tried finding the physical cartridges of these for the old NES just because I wanted to have that physical copy.
Yeah.
Because once the Wii U breaks on me, I mean, I do have those files stored on my PC or my Mac, and I do have those files, but getting those to work on another Wii, you'd have to probably use some illegal finagling, which I may not have so much of an issue with since I actually did purchase these games. I was
going to say, you almost have to say illegal in, inverted quotes because
I do own these games.
One could argue that is fair use. Just because you've created this system that makes it, this difficult for me, I still have a right to the thing that I paid for and own.
The Video Game History Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to preserving, celebrating, and teaching the history of games, has now published its own statement about the closure of Nintendo's legacy digital shops. While it is unfortunate that people won't be able to purchase digital 3DS or Wii U games anymore, we understand the business reality that went into this decision. What we don't understand is what path Nintendo expects its fans to take should they wish to play these games in the future. As a paying member of the Entertainment Software Association, the ESA, Nintendo actively funds lobbying that prevents even libraries from being able to provide legal access to these games. Not providing commercial access is understandable, but preventing institutional work to preserve these titles on top of that is actively destructive to video game history. We encourage ESA members like Nintendo to rethink their position on this issue and work with existing institutions to find a solution. I completely agree with this statement. I like Nintendo. I've often sung their praises, but I'll also call them out when they're doing wrong. And this is an example of something where I don't feel they care about video game preservation. And there are other companies that aren't good about it either, but Nintendo is a console manufacturer, and I feel that console manufacturers need to step it up a bit with this stuff. And Microsoft, oddly enough, I think is one of the best. I think there is at least some caring on their level. They've gone to a lot of trouble to make old Xbox titles work on their new consoles. I don't know how much they're going to be doing in the future, but they have stated that it is a kind of a passion project there. So theoretically, on some of these games that make backwards compatible, if you own an old Xbox game, you can actually stick it into your modern Xbox. It'll play, or you can buy a digital copy of that same game. It'll play, and they've even added improvements, made the resolution better on a modern console, so it doesn't look.
Well, this is another one of those situations where, although obviously the primary driving force is the company, the purchasers have to share some of that responsibility. If you're just going to keep supporting them and not pushing back, well, you get what you get. I mean. If there was enough gamers that said, look, we demand this ability to, own a physical copy, to back it up, to whatever, then, these companies would have to acquiesce. Vote with your dollars or vote with your feet. Just saying. But if you are, tapping the vein and going, gotta have it, well, they've got you.
Gotta have what, though? What are you saying?
Whatever the game is from whatever console, is.
Here's the thing. Here's the trouble with Nintendo. Nintendo actually does currently produce a lot of good quality modern entertainment. They make new games, and I give them points for that. And sometimes they do re-release older titles in various forms. Right now, they have like a subscription service where you can play all the old NES games, which I don't care as much for. But sometimes they'll put out a collection or they'll do a remaster of an older game. But I'm just pointing out this is something Nintendo does that I don't care for. I think other stuff they do in the industry is great. I do think for starters, I think they're one of the few game companies that at least hasn't gone over they haven't gotten political. Do you understand? In their games, they say our games are for everybody. I think Reggie Fils-Aimé, one of their previous owners, says we don't try not to bring that stuff in our games because our games are really for everybody. He made that statement, so I got to give them props there. I do think they need to at least do better, at least with these institutions trying to preserve these games. Work with them. It's good for your image.
Yeah. And, anytime you can put something out that you already have that can make you more money, There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, please. I don't know how many times I've repurchased Super Mario Brothers on whatever console. I buy it once, that should be enough. But I'll say this, I'll go into this some other stream if I ever get my hands on one, but there are, as you say, sometimes the fans are doing the best work. There are gaming fans that are creating devices that are going to help a lot with.
I've heard,
me being able to preserve things I already own. It's not me purchasing bootleg stuff. It's like someone's basically created a means of which I could basically create like what I would call an iTunes for video games, where I can put my own games on a device by making my own ROMs out of it. But I'll talk about that some other time. And that's another good way, or at least me preserving my own personal library if I don't want to keep dragging my old cartridges out, having to worry about this wearing out. But what was we are still waiting to see a lot of classics on the Switch, like Metroid Prime Trilogy, Zelda, Twilight Princess, etc. The whole Twilight Princess thing makes no sense because Nintendo had remastered that and Wind Waker on the Wii U, so they could very easily port those over to the Switch. People were expecting that to happen, like they're going to do it as a double pack, but I've seen no sign of it. As for Metroid Prime, I've heard people over at Retro say that they can't actually make that for the Switch because of the way the controls were, but I've heard another rumor that they are actually remaking the first Metroid Prime game. But these are all rumors. I have no idea what's true or what's not. We have to wait until Nintendo, much like Mr. Willy Wonka, decides to let us in on what they're trying to do. And I was never big into Nintendo. Mainly played on PlayStation, Xbox because they had the games I wanted. Since my 360 with the red ring 5 times, I swore off Xbox and just played PlayStation. I'm going to tell you something, ambassadorial wing. I remember at the time, I was usually a Nintendo guy, but I was actually liking what Xbox was doing, and my friend said, "Oh, got my 5th Xbox in the mail." He says, "What? Oh, I got the red ring of death. Oh, that must have been a fluke, right?" And then I read online, and I'm like, this has happened how many times? To how many people? Because Microsoft figured it's cheaper to replace it than to do a redesign. And I was like, I'll be getting a Nintendo Wii. And that's where this brings us back to me purchasing digital old games on the Wii. Let's move on. Let's hopefully Nintendo will at least do a little harder at game preservation, but we must move on. Paramount stock slides on stepped up streaming plans, analysts downgrade. Do we like Paramount?
Not anymore.
Not if you're an investor, I would think.
Not if you're a Star Trek fan.
I have been a Paramount Plus subscriber, and they have to get their act together on this streaming platform. They've had a fight with the satellite company over CBS. CBS is hard to find on different services. You want to watch CBS shows, it's either over the air or you have to get a subscription to Paramount Plus, or there are probably other less than legal ways to watch them. But let's go. Shares of Paramount, the new corporate name of Viacom. CBS took a dive after the media conglomerate told Wall Street that it was more aggressively equipped itself for battle on the streaming wars. The stock tumbled more than 20% in early trading Wednesday before closing down 17.8% to $29.58 a share. The drop came a day after Paramount's 2022 Investor Day presentation that detailed revised financial forecasts, including a bigger capital outlay for its streaming strategy led by Paramount Plus. Investors were apparently unnerved about the heavier investment Paramount plans to make in the streaming biz. Do I need to basically translate that? Says you've already pumped a lot of money into this failed thing and you want to pump more into it? Is that what
exactly. Oh, okay. That's beautifully put, Boomer.
This is me translating the. At least we're not reading from Forbes. It plans to boost spending on streaming content to $6 billion by 2024 versus $4 billion previously, and the resulting hit to profitability. I think it's the investors saying, "Please slow down and figure out what you're doing." Bank of America securities analyst Jessica Reif Ehrlich downgraded her rating of the stock from buy to neutral and cut her 12-month price target on the stock from $52 to $39 a share. That's not good.
Nope.
That seems fairly bad. At the Investor Day presentation, CFO Naveen Chopra outlined higher targets for the streaming businesses, including higher content spending outlook and direct-to-consumer revenue of more than $9 billion by 2024 versus previous guidance of $6 billion. He said the peak losses in Paramount streaming businesses would come in 2023. The company, by the end of 2024, expects to hit more than 100 million streaming subscribers by 2024, up from the previous target of 65 million to 75 million. Paramount demonstrated a greater commitment to streaming with the decision to window all Paramount Pictures films on the premium streamer after theatrical runs beginning in 2024, as well as South Park starting in 2025. So that means that these Paramount movies that are coming out are not going to be exclusive to their own platform until 2024, and South Park also will not be exclusive to the platform for streaming until 2025. Is that correct?
I think so, yeah.
Am I reading this right? They're saying things that I think should already be the case, like, oh, it's a new Paramount movie. I can't wait to watch the new this new Paramount movie on Paramount Plus, and it's on HBO Max, because maybe they signed a deal with HBO Max where they decided, let's enter. I feel like everyone tried jumping into the streaming war without a plan.
Yeah.
Am I wrong here?
No, I think you're spot on. And I think we actually even kind of talked about this in different ways over the years, that there's this race and there's only so many streaming services people can afford. And so the ones that do it the best, that have the best content, are going to win. And everyone else is going to have to start coming up with probably a package deal. You go to Netflix and say, I'm going to license my material to you. If you don't...
That's what they used to do, and they don't want to do that anymore.
Well, then they're going to...
They want to be the kingfish. Okay.
Then you're going to end up where Paramount is right now, where your stocks are losing market share, and you got to decide, do I want to, go back to Netflix, or do I want to go out of friggin' business?
The question for Paramount, Viacom, CBS remains whether it will be able to grow profitability and free cash flow to match prior levels, according to MoffettNathanson analysts. In short, unfortunately, we still did not learn anything to help us believe the answer will be yes, at least for the foreseeable future, the analyst wrote in a February 16th note. Well, I want to say something else, too. They've been investing very heavily in all these Star Trek series, and of course, you and I also have issues with what they've done with Star Trek, but I want to bring another point about. You shouldn't just be catering to the Star Trek audience anyway. You need to be doing other things besides just Star Trek.
Well, especially when you're doing such a shit job with Star Trek.
Yes, but like, they need to have other stuff on there. Like, what are their other exclusives? They had The Stand. They did a remake of Stephen King's The Stand. Yeah.
Did anyone care?
I saw it. It had issues. It had a better ending. I'll say that. It had a better ending than the original, but it was just it wasn't necessarily better than the original miniseries. I didn't think so, but yeah, I don't know. It's just, let's keep moving on. I mean, I don't know that anybody was purchasing a subscription to Paramount Plus to watch this remake of The Stand. Did you hear anybody screaming about it, how great it was, or anything like that?
No, I heard absolutely zip about it. I mean, I guess the fact that people weren't saying, oh, it doesn't follow the source material, or it wasn't as good as the previous one, maybe that's good, but it sure doesn't get them any watch time.
Well, I don't know if anybody was even caring enough to even compare it. I think they just...
Exactly my point, yeah. And look, remaking something that already exists... I don't know. I don't even know how to address that. Nobody.
Do you know who they got?
Nobody cares. Go ahead.
You see the original miniseries? I read the book. You know the Trash Can Man,
Mm-hmm.
the guy that liked to blow things up. You know, played him in the Paramount Plus version.
No,
Ezra Miller.
Oh, jeez. Oh, crap.
Which may not have been much of a stretch for him, actually. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm being mean to poor Ezra. Okay.
What? You want me to blow something up? Okay.
I know. Oh, man. Don't twist my arm. I thought
that was Matt Fuhrer the first time around. He was good. Well,
oh, he's a great actor.
He's great no matter what he does.
Yes. So he was Max.
I just remember him bumbity.
Remember Max? He was Max Headroom.
I do, and I also have seen a couple YouTube videos about how most people kind of misunderstand the whole purpose of Max Headroom, and how there's a lot more to it than people realize. Very, very interesting. Very interesting story there. But Paramount is, and of course the focus being on the streaming service, but that's just a small part of their stock situation. Their network isn't doing well. Their studio isn't doing well. Star Trek was way too big a focus for them, and they crapped all over that. Can you imagine if Star Wars, as they were going into the sequel trilogy, had been all that Disney had going for them? I mean, just think about that.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of where Paramount is right now. I mean, because let's face it, CBS, what has CBS got? It's got a bunch of TV series. And don't get me wrong, there are some CBS shows that Netter and I really, really love.
Yeah.
She streams them on CBS, you know, I don't know, is it CBS.com or whatever?
Yeah. And they also stream on their app if you're using devices.
And if we get far enough behind and it's something that we like enough, we just buy the DVDs. We have all of well, maybe we don't have the last couple seasons of NCIS, but we have most of NCIS and DVD.
It's been announced, or at least Michael Williams announced, that he is ending his run on Bull, and Bull is ending this season. You may end up seeing him back as DiNozzo. You never know.
He probably won't come back as DiNozzo unless it's just like for a guest appearance, which I think would be great. I mean, it wouldn't be like Luke Skywalker showing up great, but it would be really, really cool.
Is Gary Cole now on NCIS? I could have swore I saw him when my mom was watching it.
I have to admit, I haven't seen it this season.
I wonder if he replaced Gibbs, because I know Gibbs finally is off the show now, but I'm wondering, Gary Cole would be an interesting replacement. I do like him as an actor. But HBO Max has an original series, Raised by Wolves. Ridley Scott's producing second season, really good so far. I'll look into it. Ambassador Royal Wing. I have liked some of the streaming series. I was championing Foundation.
You know,
on Apple TV a few months ago. I thought that was excellent.
I'm not sure if we should be referring to you as Ambassadorial Wing, because that is the name of your channel, or if I should be calling you Ambassador Kosh. But how about we just call you Ambassador? We'll just call you Ambassador. You know, maybe it's a little overly formal, but you know. But he actually was saying something during our talk the other day about HBO Max, and I was like, oh, not another one. Is someone else proselytizing for HBO Max and how great it is?
Well, no.
I'm projecting on you, Ambassador. You weren't really that strong about it. It's just that's what Boomer does, and when you brought it up, I'm like, oh no, not again.
No. I want to say something. I actually, on this stream, I try to be fair. Now, I've been a little nonplussed about HBO Max recently, but when I first started it, the interface is very good on that channel, unlike some other streaming services that I won't name here.
Oh, I dig it.
AMC Plus, cough. Fix your interface, please. But, you know, I can find what I'm looking for in there. And when I first loaded it up, I'm like, wow, if I want to watch any Dirty Harry movie, it's there. Enter the Dragon, it's there. Like, a lot of the Warner Brothers back catalog was at my fingertips. And then, of course, what happens after I start singing its praises a month later? Oh, they're being rotated out. Stop doing that. You're in a war right now. Do that after you have us hooked. But still, I don't hate HBO Max. There's some good things and things I like and things I don't like about it. But if they put, I'll tell you this, they put Kung Fu: The Legend Continues on there, the original series, all 4 seasons, I will be singing the praises again because I want to rewatch that show. But let's not talk about HBO. Let's talk about Paramount's future plans. Okay. Are you excited? Sonic the Hedgehog live action Knuckles series announced for Paramount Plus. Yay! Where's your
I have to admit, I had no idea who this Knuckles was, and when I was looking him up, I'm like, so he's just a red version of Sonic?
No, he's not just the red version of Sonic. He's not a hedgehog, he's an Enchita.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's read. Although we still haven't seen his formal appearance in the upcoming movie Sonic the Hedgehog 2, set to release on April 8th, the character Knuckles has been announced as getting his own live-action series on Paramount Plus in 2023. Paramount itself made the announcement during its latest financial call, where it also confirmed that a third Sonic the Hedgehog film would also be coming in the future. Basically, these movies make us money. We need to make more of them. That's what they're saying. And the only reason why this first Sonic the Hedgehog movie, I think, did as much as it did is... Do you remember when they showed the first trailer for the Sonic the Hedgehog movie and the internet got very upset because they hated the look of Sonic the Hedgehog?
Yeah.
I suspect someone over at Sega went over to someone over at Paramount and slapped them right on, but it was you change that character design right now to reflect the character from the game, and they did. And then the movie turned out better than people expected.
Yeah.
My thoughts on Sonic the Hedgehog is it's the best movie we could have ever hoped to get based off of Sonic the Hedgehog video game, but it's still a movie based on Sonic the Hedgehog video game. It's fine. I did like Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik. He was a good choice. It was like old school Jim Carrey, the zany Jim Carrey we knew from the past. Anyway, let's see though, and while we haven't seen what Knuckles will have in store for everyone during his big screen adaptation, actor Idris Elba has confirmed to also be voicing the character again in the upcoming TV show.
So this is the same actor. This is the same actor that's doing him in the movies, doing him in the series.
Yes.
Nice. Okay. Cool.
Oh, that's good. I've liked Idris Elba and things I've seen him, and it's funny hearing that London accent coming out of Knuckles' voice. Well, what kind of accent does Knuckles have? Do we know? No. So no,
I was just gonna say it's kind of funny to hear any of these characters because they didn't really have talking roles in the games. So
as you know, I was a Nintendo kid growing up. My brother is the one who had the Sega Genesis. My impression of Knuckles is that Knuckles starts out as an enemy of Sonic the Hedgehog, but I think we learned that he was being misled by Dr. Robotnik and that he's not really a bad guy. He was just maybe misinformed about who Sonic was and what he was supposed to do. So I don't think he's really a villain character, even though he will be the adversary in the new movie. I'm sure they'll clean that up in the movie. He has his own following too. There are a bunch of Knuckles fans out there. It's like I said, Nintendo guy over here, but I did appreciate the Sega games. Okay, details on all this on this new Knuckles series are still sparse, but Sega offered up some of the initial details about the future of Sonic the Hedgehog not long after Paramount made its today's announcement. We are delighted to announce that the third Sonic theatrical film and the first live-action Sonic series, Paramount Plus, are being actively developed, Sega said in a statement on Twitter. We've got a remarkable partnership with Paramount, because Sega wants money too, and we're excited to continue expanding the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise with them. They ran into trouble, like Sega, I don't know if you know this, but over in Japan, the arcade scene was still a thing up until recently. And I think the pandemic killed it, and Sega owned a lot of those arcades. Like, people would go into these arcades and go and play the games, and it's a very fancy thing over there. And I think they got hit big time because the people were stuck at home during the pandemic. So I think Sega lost a lot of money. So I think they want to recoup some of those losses. Actually, I'll say this: it's fine. I think it's good. I think these Sonic movies and series have an audience. I think they make the best Sonic movie and series you can. I say. I don't know again how wide and if this is going to draw people into Paramount.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't think this is not going to make up for the stock hit they've been taking. This isn't the solution to their financial woes, but it's something, I guess.
It's something, yeah. It's better news than what we have coming up next.
Yeah, go for it.
I know you tell us not to be black-pilled on things, but...
Oh, by the way, since you bring that up, listening to Viva Fry earlier, someone paid him a bit of a compliment. They referred to him as an antidepressant. So I think from now on, for me, the opposite of black pill is antidepressant.
Funny. Yes.
But this is not that. This is black pill. Go ahead.
Yes. Anyway, someone also mentioned the Uncharted. There was another video game movie that got released recently. It was the Uncharted movie, and
yeah, I had no idea that had something to do with a video game.
Well, these video games that it's based on are very cinematic video games, so they're very much in the adventure movie genre, except that they're video game form, but they have like cutscenes and action. It's almost like Sony used to sell them, but like this guy is sitting in his apartment with his girlfriend, and she says, "I want to watch the next part of that Uncharted movie you're watching," and he's like, "She doesn't know I'm not watching a movie. I'm playing a video game." Do you understand?
I love that. So that's awesome.
It makes sense that the movie would probably...
Honestly, Netter and I have played games that were just like that. We don't really even care about the game, enjoyability. We're concerned about what the next part of the story is going to be.
See, I'm the opposite. The game can have they open up a portal to hell, demons are coming through, go shoot them. That's enough for me.
Well, that has its place too, don't get me wrong.
Yes. Okay, but here we go. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles villain movies, Transformers series, and more headed to Paramount Plus and Nickelodeon. What? Okay, Paramount Plus, the Viacom CBS streaming service, will have unveiled a new slate of original kids and family programming, including a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles CG animated movie series and a Transformer Earthspark animated series, among others. The announcement were made Tuesday by Brian Robbins, Chief Content Officer. I'm sorry, Chief Content Officer. I'm sorry. I'll shut my mouth. I'm sorry. That just strikes me as funny.
Yeah.
Okay, movies and kids and family entertainment Paramount Plus during the Viacom CBS Investors event. Nickelodeon Animation is following the release of the upcoming Teenage Ninja Turtles CG animated theatrical film with a series of exclusive movies for Paramount Plus beginning in 2023. Each will center on one of the property's storied villains in never-before-told tales, according to the streaming service. The upcoming animated movie, which will hit theaters in 2023, is produced by Point Grey Pictures, Seth Rogen, and Evan Goldberg, and directed by Jeff Rao.
Well, if Seth Rogen's involved, it's already a non-starter for me.
Tell me that's not the animation studio behind Sausage Party and Santa Inc., and they're doing a Turtles movie now. That's what it's sounding like to me.
Yeah, I'm not interested.
Okay.
I didn't even know that going into this week. So
well, we talked about this months and months ago. I mentioned that Seth Rogen, like everyone's treating it like it's news, and I'm like, no, this was out a while ago that he was involved in the next Turtles project. This was before Santa Inc. hit, and he hit it. Our opinion of him hit a new low. What was I going to say though? Why are they having more movies based on villains? Are we going to hear about the Shredder's poor childhood? About how the
I have to wonder if this is more of that trying to push the whole understand the bad guy and I don't know.
No, there's
humanizing them and all this kind of stuff.
There's nothing to understand. Bebop and Rocksteady, at least from the cartoons I watched, they were these goons that got turned into mutants, and Shredder was just always bad. That's what I loved about the Shredder. Remember the first Turtles movie from the 80s? Did you ever see it? When he comes out and he's like, "I am your father," or to all the wayward youth of New York City. Remember he says that to them. He's trying to make them all part of his ninja clan, and it's. I'll say this: the Shredder's been fairly consistent. I mean, I didn't see the newer of the animated series Turtles series that they made, but which I know a lot of the kids did like. I don't have an opinion. I didn't get around to watching it because it wasn't available, but. The Shredder's always been fairly consistent, even in the Michael Bay produced movies. He didn't direct them. I'm just pointing that out. The Shredder they had in that first one, he was terrifying. There was a scene in that movie where his daughter comes to him and says, these turtle vigilantes, they're stopping our operations, and he goes to her and says, "Go into the public, find some civilians, and start killing them. The turtles will show up." And that's rather cold, don't you think? For a villain to say that, just start executing some civilians. That'll draw the turtles out. I thought that was fairly terrifying.
Yeah, let's see them humanize that.
That's my point. You're not supposed to humanize the Shredder. It doesn't work. He's bad. Okay. Let's see what else they have. Nickelodeon. Okay, so we have Paramount Plus will also include Blue's Big City Adventure, a hybrid animated live action Blues Clues and You movie from Nickelodeon Animation. Blue's Big City Adventure follows hosts Josh and Blue as they head to New York City with the help of Steve and Joe to audition for a big Broadway musical. It's set to premiere later this year on the streaming service. That might interest you. You're a big Broadway guy, right? You want to check that out?
I mean, maybe if they open up Broadway again.
I'm just saying, this movie, it's going to be about, I wonder what the musical will be. I'm just, okay. Also set on Paramount Plus and Nickelodeon's Transformers Earthspark series, co-produced by Nickelodeon Animation and Hasbro Entertainment 1. It follows a new species of Transformers who must find their place and purpose among Autobots, Decepticons, and the human family who adopts them. Previously announced Untitled animated Transformers film with Josh Cooley attached to direct will debut in theaters on July 19, 2024 from Paramount Animation and E1 Hasbro Entertainment Studio. It sounds like they're really trying to sell this service, but I'm not so far being sold. Let's continue. They joined previously announced titles from Nickelodeon, including live action Monster High musical movie, an animated series in partnership with Mattel. A Baby Shark feature-length film in development for 2023.
Oh God.
Is that song?
Baby Shark. Yeah, that's
Okay.
exactly what it is.
Co-produced by Nickelodeon Animation and the Pink Fong Company, and a theatrical Paw Patrol movie sequel, a Spin Master Entertainment production in association with Nickelodeon Animation, with distribution by Paramount Pictures, along with a companion first ever Paw Patrol series spinoff. This sounds like this is all for children. All this stuff I've been talking about so far.
Yeah.
I mean, even the Knuckles series. I mean, adults can enjoy it too, I'm sure. But it seems like they're really trying to gear toward the family audience. Let's keep going. Robbins also noted the success of young adult-focused iCarly, the top comedy acquisition driver on Paramount Plus last year, and now in production on its second season, opened the door for Paramount Plus to feature more YA content. Details for Paramount Plus's previously announced YA titles coming to the service in 22 are below. Is everybody ready? Are you excited? Let's move on.
I'm really
fantasy
not, no.
football. You're going to listen and you're going to make comments on each of these. Two word comments. How about that? Okay.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Fantasy football. This new original live action movie for Paramount Plus follows 16-year-old Amber Coleman, Marcy Martin on Blackish, who discovers she can control her professional football player's dad's prowess on the field through her video game. The movie will be produced in partnership with Nickelodeon, Awesomeness Films, LeBron James and Maverick Carter's The Spring Hill Company, and Marcy Martin and Joshua Martin's Genius Entertainment. Well, that's something. What do you think? Huh?
Yeah.
Move on. Okay. It almost sounds like that. Never mind. Like that Jumanji movie where they are in the video game, but never mind. Honor Society, a live-action comedic film that follows Honor and Gory Rice, Spider-Man: No Way Home, mayor of Easttown, an ambitious high school senior whose sole focus is getting into Harvard, assuming she can first score the coveted recommendation from her guidance counselor, Mr. Calvin, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, Kick-Ass Superbad. Honor concocts a plan to take her top 3 student competitors until things take a turn when she unexpectedly falls for her biggest competition, Michael, I guess an actor from Stranger Things, Gatton Matarazzo. Who's the guy that got killed off? I don't know. Additional cast members include Armani Jackson, Chad, Palm Trees and Power, and Amy Cume Evil. Okay. Hush Hush, the new original live-action adaptation of New York Times bestselling novels by Becca Fitzpatrick. Hush Hush is a supernatural romance story about the forbidden love between a girl and a fallen angel. Production is slated for 2022 in partnership with BCDF Pictures and Entertain Me. What's a fallen angel?
That's
devil,
usually
right?
a demon, yeah.
Demon, yeah. So, okay. What do we think?
I think it all sounds like crap to me, but that's.
It sounds
that's
like
me.
Nickelodeon, paid Nickelodeon.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason that these come right after we talked about how Paramount was kind of tanking. It's. I don't know, man.
They don't have a plan.
There is no plan.
This
is
no longer your movie. I'm expecting someone.
We're supposed to be reporting on this, and it's like, yeah, this is a thing that's happening.
I want Knuckles and the Enchita with Idris Elba complaining in like a boardroom, and then some guy going up and says, "This is no longer your series." Like Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, exactly.
Have Paramount hire David Lynch and say, "Do whatever you want." Give him like a 10-episode series. I will be happy to watch that show and knock off the nonsense.
I know, right?
Okay, it seems Sony looks like they are planning future Sony character movies as they had an intro into displaying their first-party characters like Marvel and DC. I'm assuming that means their game properties, possibly. At the news of Seth Rogen being involved, Ninja vanish, disappear in a cloud of smoke. Yes, of course. Let's see. No, I'm not excited. No, I don't want that bloody song in my head. It will stay there for a good week, so I don't know what to tell you. Blame Paramount. Subscribe to Paramount Plus, people. All right. Lord of the Rings, the Ring of what of Wackens? Wokens? What are you doing here? What are you doing here, Troy? Don't be putting stuff in my notes. Will you be open-minded? Will you be open-minded to this new original Lord of the Rings series on Amazon?
No.
I want to. Oh boy! Now I was not going to be commenting on this. Everybody last week was flipping out over the new Lord of the Rings Amazon series, and I'm like, I don't even want to give this show any attention. I have a suspicion that this is going to be a pile of hot garbage, and I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. In fact, I was going to joke.
I wouldn't want to touch it with a 10-foot Slav.
Yes.
But ching.
Yes, there you go. I was going to joke with you. I know you say not to be, can I be black-pilled about Lord of the Rings now? Because this is not, it's not in good shape right now. Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power.
You can be black-pilled about this article, but then let me be a little bit of an antidepressant for you.
Be an antidepressant for me. But we're going to talk, and I have a second article that's related to this one, so I'm going to bring that up too. The Lord of the Rings of Power showrunners admit they don't have the rights to the I can never say the title of this book. The Silmarillion?
Silmarillion, yes.
Silmarillion, or Unfinished Tales. Now, when they had first announced this story, I figured, oh, they're going to be digging into that stuff now.
One would have thought.
That's what I thought up until I saw this, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? What now?
Yep.
So that's why I'm talking about this now, because are you just going to be making a bunch of shit up? That's what it's sounding like to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so this from Bounty in the Comics that also takes quotes from the Vanity Fair article, which perhaps I should have read, but maybe I didn't want to, because of course, I think they were alluding to the fact that if you criticize this show, you're an histophobe and all sorts of things, which that's not even what I'm commenting on here. I'm commenting on other aspects of the series that are troubling to me. The Lord of the Rings of Power showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay admitted their show does not have a number of rights that depict the events from the second age of the Lord of the Rings world. Speaking with Vanity Fair, Payne revealed they only have the rights to the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, the Return of the King, the Appendices, and the Hobbit. He stated, we have the rights solely to the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, the Return of the King, the Appendices, and the Hobbit, and that is it. We do not have the rights to the
Silmarillion, yeah.
Unfinished Tales, History of Middle-earth, or any of those other books. This sort of threw me for a loop, because when they had first announced this Lord of the Rings series, that's what I had assumed they were going to do. I assumed they're going to make a television version of Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King. That was my initial impression. I'm like, really? I guess the movies aren't that old. I mean, I guess the movies are getting older, but I figured they were going to make it in television form, and I didn't know how I felt about that, but that's what I thought they were doing. Then other people were telling me, no. It's a Lord of the Rings series about the beginning of the whole Lord of the Rings, like when Sauron came to power and all that. And I figured, okay, so they're digging into the other lore for that, which I didn't know if that was such a good idea, since those are kind of odd narratives. I mean,
yeah,
they're not. I mean, is that basically like Tolkien's Bible, basically for Middle Earth? Is that what that is
I'd
like?
say it's more like his notes, but
okay.
Yeah.
So. One wonders why in the world someone would endeavor to bring live action the Second Age when you don't have the rights to the key materials to document the Second Age. Well, McKay has an answer. There's a version of everything we need for the Second Age in the books we have the rights to, as long as we're painting within those lines and not egregiously contradicting something we don't have the rights to. There's a lot of leeway and room to dramatize and tell some of the best stories that Tolkien ever came up with, he added. Now, I want to make a point about something. This reminds me of, what do you say, 30% different?
Yep.
That's what this is reminding me of. This is
yeah, so this is where you could get a little bit of an antidepressant, right? So imagine, just by way of analogy, we have the rights to do, some films and whatnot revolving around Next Gen and Deep Space Nine, but we don't have the rights to the original series or Enterprise or Voyager or anything else or any of the movies. Okay, then how exactly are you supposed to do prequel stuff? Oh, we're just going to make up our own crap. That's basically what JJ did, right? So by the same token, no pun intended, that's what they're doing here. We don't have the rights to it, so we're just going to make up our own shit. This is not Tolkien, okay? This is generic sci-fi, whatever the hell they want to do. You are not going to have any Tolkien fans in on this. Not even the ones that got into it because of the movies. It's just not going to happen. They're going to go, oh, this is... Never mind.
Now, I know there were some Tolkien fans that had issues with the original Jackson trilogy, and that's fine. They cannot like them. But I often look at the Jackson trilogy, and I looked at it as, think of I was not expecting it to be as good as it was. I was pleasantly surprised with all three of those movies. Hobbit trilogy, not so much. I got some problems with the Hobbit trilogy. But
in fairness, though, and I'm going to have to share this with you sometime. I've got a fan edit of the Hobbit trilogy that literally chops it down and turns it into the actual Hobbit.
Warner Brothers needs to issue that official version of that and let me buy that instead of me having to slog through love triangles between Legolas and a dwarf and the very attractive Evangeline Lilly playing a female elf character that I don't even believe existed.
Right.
At least not in The Hobbit, because there were no women in The Hobbit as I recall. It's just...
No, there weren't. But then again, this is also... studio driven when Peter Jackson's like, it's one movie. We're going to do this in one movie. No. We need it to be another trilogy. But there's not enough material here to make a trilogy. Well, stretch it out. Add some stuff.
In Jackson's defense, they didn't give him the prep time he needed because they counted Guillermo del Toro's prep time along with his. And it's like, you shouldn't have done that because he had to leave the project eventually because that project had been on hold. I would have been interested to see what he would have done with The Hobbit. It might have been something great, but we'll never know. But it's... so here we go.
Well, I'll tell you what would have happened. The trolls would have had like eyes on their hands or something like that. But yeah, be that as it may.
Well, if you saw Hellboy 2, there was a lot of fantasy-esque stuff in Hellboy 2.
I'm being a little overly harsh. I'm actually just being funny, but yeah.
Oh, my favorite part in Hellboy 2. Remember when Hellboy he's going into, what is it, the troll village or whatever it is, and he's talking to the one guy. He says, so you're not going to talk? No, not ever, 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 ever. And then he just punches the guy, and he goes flying, and you see his tail hit the wall. And I was busted out laughing in the theater. And then he goes up to someone else, and you just see him slap in the face, back and forth, like, and then, and then he comments something on the woman's child and says, I'm not a baby, I'm a tumor. And I'm like, this is just wrong. This entire scene is wrong. I love the Hellboy movies, the old Hellboy movies. At least I don't know about that new one, but I didn't see it.
Yeah, so but yeah, this Lord of the Rings is not anything that has anything to do with any real Tolkien thing. They don't even understand the lore of Middle Earth. So don't expect this. This is, I'll tell you what, this rings of wokeness is to Lord of the Rings what the High Republic is to Star Wars.
What I don't understand is this. Lord of the Rings is a very highly respected piece. It's not just a popular movie series. It's a highly respected piece of English literature.
Yeah.
And we kind of have screwed up copyright laws. There has to be a point where something like that needs to be public domain.
Yeah.
And I understood, at least for a while, the family was in charge of it, and I kind of understand that. The family is going to maintain their integrity. I don't think the family is in charge of this anymore. I think it's some firm that now controls the Lord of the Rings licensing and everything, which might explain, like, we've had bad Lord of the Rings things over the years. There was a terrible at least at the time, maybe they fixed it later on, but there was a Lord of the Rings Shadow of War game that came out by WB Interactive that, much like that Star Wars game from EA, had all these loot boxes and microtransactions, and everybody flipped out. They eventually removed them, but that was a bad Lord of the Rings product, and this is looking like another bad Lord of the Rings product. And I find it interesting that Amazon just didn't want to adapt Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King, which makes me think that there will be plans for those eventually. Maybe not this decade, but maybe by the time the 2030s hit, they'll be like, hey, we can redo the Lord of the Rings trilogy, because by that point the Peter Jackson films, so those are from the early 2000s. That's like well over almost 30 years old at this point, right? That's probably what they'll say. So I don't know.
I don't know. I don't
But
know.
let me read about these showrunners, because I'd never heard of them before. And
Yeah.
J.J. Abrams helped Lord of the Rings showrunners land their Rings of Power gig.
Yeah.
Let me go. This is from CBR. Like I said, we go to all kinds of websites here. Filmmaker J.J. Abrams. What films did he make? He did Super 8, and he did Star Wars. I don't. Okay, filmmaker J.J. Abrams helped Lord of the Rings of Power showrunners Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne land their head creative roles in the upcoming fantasy series. Speaking to Vanity Fair about how they acquired their Rings of Power gig, McKay and Payne gave tremendous credit to their previous collaborator Abrams, whom they worked with on the Star Trek movie. We were a little bit of a dark horse, McKay stated, and Amazon talked to absolutely everybody who ever had an idea for Lord of the Rings. When Abrams heard Amazon Studios was seeking showrunner candidates for its highly anticipated Lord of the Rings prequel series, the Lost creator reached out to suggest McKay and Payne for the highly coveted creative position. Thanks to Abrams' recommendation, McKay and Payne were given the opportunity to pitch 50 hours of television to both Amazon studio executives and the Tolkien estate. Their efforts proved successful, leading the showrunners to helm one of the biggest budgeted television shows in history. We were passionate about the material and had a take that matched Amazon's appetites and ambition, Payne noted. Friends since high school, McKay and Payne have co-written various works in the entertainment industry. However, despite being in Hollywood for more than a decade, The Rings of Power will be their first credited IMDb listing. We've worked on so many projects with so many awesome and exciting people that never got made, or worked on things that did get made and we didn't get credit, McKay explained. What's the problem here?
I would start with the fact that it's J.J. Abrams.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Another problem with this story, does this duo have any experience?
Nope,
it is sounding like they have none. Don't tell me you've worked on things with Abrams and movies and such, and you never got a credit. Maybe someone in the chat can correct me, but that seems like what they're saying here. You know who has a single IMDb credit to his name? I do. I'm not going to say what it is. I'm not going to say what my name is because I don't give this out. But even I have one. If they worked on Star Trek, I would imagine even if they were working, as a grip or something, they would have a credit on the movie. I'm not understanding how they have no IMDb listing credits on anything, and they're given a $1 billion series. This doesn't make any sense to me. And yes, Abrams. I don't know how Abrams has all this pull to make all these decisions for places that he's not even contracted to work with. Right now, he's working for Warner Brothers, so why is he passing this on to Amazon? This doesn't make any sense to me. Hello, you there?
I was just looking up your IMDb credit.
I'll tell you after the stream.
I may be looking at it right now.
I'll tell you after the stream. There's multiple. I have a very common sounding name. Anyways.
Yeah, true.
But my point is that someone should have South Park fans are going nuts with the name Tolkien lately. I don't know. I know that many of us Americans used to pronounce it Tolkien, and then I find out people it's Tolkien, and it's funny. You watch the Tolkien movie about Tolkien, and there's a scene where he's in the classroom. The teacher says, "J.R. Tolkien," and he says, "Actually, it's Tolkien," and he corrects the teacher, and I'm like, "Yep."
Good.
It worked on Tommy Wiseau's The Room, Troy Pacelli. Oh, that would have been fascinating to work on. Let me tell you, I don't understand how you have not one credit to your name in Hollywood and you're given $1 billion series. Like, I would understand if these writers were veterans of Lost or Once Upon a Time or Fringe or something other Abrams helm production or something like that. I don't know Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, if
well,
this had been...
it's very much like I was talking about with, the earlier under Iger Lucasfilm, right? Oh, I am dating this person. I slept with that person. I'm married to this person. This is my old, college roommate, so they end up getting into they get a byline or a story credit, or they come up with Geode the Rock and whatever, and then when the grown-ups come in and go, what the hell are you people doing? No. And right now I think Paramount is going through that. There is no adult in the room. We basically all the articles we've talked.
No, Amazon. You mean Amazon?
Or Amazon? I'm sorry, Amazon.
Let's be blunt. Both Amazon and Paramount.
Right.
This is the same thing, and
right. It's and the difference with Amazon is Amazon kind of doesn't care about their streaming service because they're doing just fine as far as their shipping and managing and sales and all that kind of stuff.
Here's what's funny though about Amazon Prime streaming. I recently watched the Jack Reacher series.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're a fan of the Jack Reacher books, Lee Child. They had a couple movies with Tom Cruise where he played Jack Reacher. The series was actually really good. They did a really good job. But then I heard someone I work with mention that Lee Child actually has a cameo on the show, and I think I even saw who it was. And to be fair, he looks like a tough guy himself, right? And I imagine that there's some Hollywood writer in the room saying, "Oh, what I really want to do is we got to deconstruct Jack Reacher," and then Lee Child walks up to him, grabs him by the balls, and says, "What do you want to do?" Like Steven Seagal style. And I'm not. No, that didn't happen. I'm just saying that I think Lee Child was actually involved in at least supervising. I think he was a producer of the show, so he supervised and made sure. And of course, the show. Great cast, diverse cast, but it works within the parameters of this series. It's a great little mystery that's solved over 10 episodes. And what's neat about it is usually, like most detectives, you don't expect them to be built like basically a brick shit house. And
yeah,
whenever a bad guy tries threatening him, it's like, don't do that. You're gonna get your ass handed to you. But it was a fascinating little series, and they done good with the Jack Reacher show. So I don't know why, if they're doing good with that, which I'm sure didn't cost $1 billion to make, why are they doing this one? I don't understand it. So it's not even me necessarily ragging on Amazon streaming, because I know they're capable of doing good stuff. It's just that this is looking like a disaster to me. Those writers are pen names for D.B. Weiss and David Benioff. Notice how they have not been involved in any big pop culture series since Thrones. Just a thought. No!
Actually, that would not surprise me, yeah.
It's not them, though. I looked up their pictures, too. And they look youngish.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're fresh out of high school, but they don't look as old. I almost, when I first saw them, I'm like, are these two the Winklevoss twins? It's...
Yeah.
No, but I don't have a good feeling for this Lord of the Rings series. I think that they're just going to make a bunch of stuff up and throw it at the screen and expect us to eat it. And if I want to give them a little bit of warning, if you thought that Star Wars fans pitched a fit, you have no idea what you're running into with Lord of the Rings fans.
Agreed. Absolutely
this is not going to be
agreed.
pleasant, and they're going to start yelling at them, and they're going to say, oh, they're screaming about the diversity casting or whatever other things they're planning to do in the service of other agendas, and that's not going to be the case. I just think it's going to be a mess of a series, but we'll see. I will not be watching it. I will not be commenting on it unless I find it to be really newsworthy. I am warning everybody to stay away from this. Lord of the Rings fans, you have your books, and maybe stick with those for a while, and maybe Jackson Films, but this is not looking good. But what I found fascinating about this is that they don't have the rights to be basing the series off what they're supposed to be basing it on. And the writers seem to have no experience at all in Hollywood, which even Peter Jackson had made movies before Lord of the Rings. They were smaller scale, but he I think he made a very popular horror movie. I think it was called, I forgot, Dead Alive or something along those lines. I don't know. Someone can correct me in the chat, but or was it Brain Dead? And even Sam Raimi, before he got Spider-Man, he had made the Evil Dead movies. He had made Darkman. These directors had done stuff on their own. These guys strike me as very green, and I don't know. What do you think?
No, yeah, I think this is going to be a shit show, and there's not going to be anything positive that comes out of it, and the goofy representation thing is not going to carry weight anymore. It really doesn't. Someone made a great analogy when they were talking about, was it black elves and black dwarves and stuff, and it's like, you know what? That would be like doing a Japanese epic, about the samurai, and then just saying, well, we got to pepper in some, people of color, just, for diversity. It takes place in Japan.
Or stick Keanu Reeves in there as the last Ronin. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
That was a bad thing not to say.
I mean, yeah, seriously. It's that kind of mentality. It's like, oh, people, really. But no.
I don't know why I don't know why they bought the rights to Lord of the Rings. I think you know what it is too. I keep forgetting. Let's not forget that they had a head of Amazon streaming, the original head that wanted Lord of the Rings. He got Me Too'd. And he got kicked out of there. I think he also wanted the Conan series. Basically, there was a big push for having our own Game of Thrones. And I think the idea is we're going to get Lord of the Rings, and and I don't know how the series would have been under his management, but I don't think he was thinking of any kind of agenda pushing. I think he was thinking we need our own Lord of the Rings. And I think the other thing was he wanted the Conan series. And the Conan series got passed by the new head of the Amazon Entertainment, which might end up being a good thing for that show if it ever does manifest, because I think I'm keeping my fingers crossed. It's being independently made, and I think they're going to eventually sell it to Netflix. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, Lord of the Rings fans, it's not a good day for you. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I forgot Jackson did work on The Frighteners. That was like
oh yeah,
that was one of the best Ghostbusters movies sequels that wasn't a real Ghostbusters sequel, right?
Yeah, kind of.
It reminded you of something. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of a movie that could have taken place in the Ghostbusters universe.
Yeah, exactly.
Like not with Venkman, but that's what it reminded me of. But Dead Alive, that was the name of it, and Heavenly Creatures, I did see that. So Meet the Feebles, haven't seen that. Okay, but anyway, we'll have to wait and see or not see. Don't watch this show. Watch Jack Reacher. It's a good Amazon Prime show if you have access to Amazon Prime. And you got to separate the wheat from the chaff. And we are at 11:15. I guess we're past our normal sign-off. Any other thoughts on this show?
Nope, not at all.
Okay. Abrams Box of Mystery, seal approved, SMH. Okay. I don't like mystery box storytelling at this point because everybody's using it.
Well, I mean, this whole concept of the mystery box is a lot like the subverting expectations. I mean, these are people that took they must have taken some creative writing class in high school, learned a few words and phrases, related to writing, and they think that they're brilliant writers. And the fact is, you keep using that phrase. It doesn't mean what you think it means. It's the mystery box. You know what a mystery box is? It's a MacGuffin. Okay, MacGuffins have their place, but in a very lore-heavy kind of story, you eventually have to define that thing because people are going to care. Okay, what was it? I don't know. The Death Star plans in the first Star Wars movie. Okay, they were a MacGuffin. They were something that the bad guys were after, that the good guys were trying to keep away from them. They had to get them off the ship and then get them back to the princess, which meant you had to save the... But ultimately, it mattered what that was.
Yes, ultimately you get to see what the Death Star is. There's that whole part of the movie where they're stuck on the Death Star.
Now, one can argue you don't always have to know what the MacGuffin is. For example, the briefcase in Pulp Fiction. That's a mystery box. You have no idea. You have no idea what it is, and it doesn't ultimately matter at the end of it. Well, some things matter about it. It matters that whatever it is valuable and people want it, but ultimately that's not what the story is about. But you can't.
Or Mission Impossible 3 with the rabbit's foot.
but it
after his
can't.
code name the Rabbits,
Yeah.
but of course that's another Abrams directed movie.
But it cannot be, as he said in his Tim talk or whatever it was, just it doesn't matter. Whatever. It's
No, it does
because
matter.
at a certain point, your mystery box becomes like Seinfeld, a show about nothing. Your franchise is about nothing, and people stop caring anymore. You've got to understand how to use the mystery box correctly. By the same token, I made the comparison to the subverting expectations, right? When you do something like M. Night Shyamalan did with what's it called, the I See Dead People movie, whatever that is.
Sixth Sense.
The Sixth Sense, right? That one was a subversion of expectations. You're expecting certain things. You see a troubled child going to see a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist has his own problems. His marriage is falling apart. Blah, 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 blah. Boom! Big twist ending. Your expectations are subverted. And then you look back at the whole movie and realize everything you saw wasn't what you thought it was. That's brilliant. Fine. But going and expecting to see the sequel to a Star Wars movie, and you make the good guys the bad guys, and the bad guys completely idiotic, and shit all over canon, and that's subverting expectations. No, that's just throwing shit at a fan and watching it scatter.
Well, I'm going to say this too. Another example I want to give. This whole mystery box thing that they've been doing on Star Trek, on these new Star Trek Paramount series, at least the ones I've watched. Picard, I mean, at some point, maybe not even mystery box is the right term. They made a point that the big threat on Star Trek Picard was that the androids on this planet were going to call out to other AIs in the universe that make the Borg look like nothing.
Yeah.
And you get to see them briefly coming through this worm thing, and then they cancel the thing. And I'm like, you didn't tell me anything about these horrible other AI that exist in the other part of the universe that I should be afraid of. Star Trek has always been big on explaining things, or at least explaining things to a point. Not all the time. Let me use the Borg as an example. Remember when they first meet the Borg? You learn about the Borg in that first episode. They meet them. They learn how, wow, they're actually raised. And it doesn't make them less mysterious, but at least you get more of an idea of what they are. You're invested in what they are. I guess I should point that out. Why are they so threatening? Because they're this collective. They raise the children from birth to be stuck in this collective, and
this is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what? That's actually a really good example because again, they just like with the Lord of the Rings. Well, we didn't have the rights to this, and this, so we're making up our own shit. Well, it's very clear that the people that are doing Picard, it's not that they didn't have the rights to things, but they don't want to pay the creators of the lore that went before. So they are sidestepping that lore. And it ends up being a shit show because, unfortunately, you're working in someone else's sandbox. That stuff exists. You can't ignore it. It's just freaking ridiculous. In a side note, I was just flipping through, and I saw that... we may have actually talked about this before. Daniel Radcliffe is playing Weird Al Yankovic. Did you know that?
What?
Yeah, they're doing a film or something about Weird Al Yankovic, and he's being played by Daniel Radcliffe.
Interesting.
Some pictures of him as Weird Al have come out.
How they look?
Well, if Weird Al was played by Ron Jeremy, these pictures would look pretty good.
What?
It looks, these pictures will get around. You guys will all see them.
I'm wanting to see these pictures now.
It's some weird shit, yeah.
I was busy. We have a bad chat member.
We have a lot of bot activity going on here.
I'm not interested in your online strips. Please be mindful of the comments we have in here, or I'm going to put you in a time. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
She was so good last week, and now this week, she's just talking about online stripping and whatnot. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
I'll have to look up now. Now you have me curious. I'm gonna have to look for this now. Daniel Radcliffe, Weird Al, correct?
Yep. It's.
I remember Weird Al from back in the day. He was pretty
He's funny. He really is. Actually, I would go as far as to say he is a comical genius. I don't know how he comes up with the lyrics he comes up with.
Of the 80s, and it still is. He still does
yeah.
too. But, why is the Weird Al thing not popping up now? Daniel Radcliffe stuck in a... Oh, I'm getting some weird stuff now.
You know what? I'll share it with you offline. You know, I've got it up on my screen. I can show it to you later.
That's fine. All right. So what do you got going on this week?
Let me see. So, well, you probably should take us through Tuesday and Wednesday first.
Yeah. So, oh my goodness.
You saw it?
No, I'm seeing the bot. Okay, but she's been blocked or whatever that is. Daniel Radcliffe might be a very short run, Jeremy. Okay. Yes. All right, this week, Wednesday, Soundtracks of Birdman, we will be doing I think I'll have a special guest on as well. We're going to be doing a rewatch of Minority Report and soundtrack discussion. And I'll see if I can find anything on the soundtrack for that movie. But we're going to be doing that movie, and then we're going to be doing... No, that's it. That's it for me this week until Friday.
Okay, so Friday I will be doing a rewatch on my channel of Demolition Man. I actually mentioned that earlier in the stream. As usual, I will be simulcasting on Discord, but the commentary will be on YouTube. So hopefully you can join us then. And then Saturday is going to be a little bit up in the air. Al was supposed to be doing a rewatch. I'm not sure that's going to be happening. I would just say keep an eye on Al's channel. If he's doing it, he's doing it. If he's not, I'm sure Netter is going to jump in and do a rewatch that night just to fill the spot.
Okay.
So let's just hold off on that. Obviously we'll get the information out on all the Twitters and the tweets and the social medias and the Discord and all that kind of stuff. Okay, and that brings us back around to Sunday.
And we'll be doing Geeky Geezers. Next week we'll be talking about Daniel Radcliffe as as Weird Al, not Big Al, excuse me.
Well, I mean, I'm just looking at him dressed as Weird Al. He could just as easily, put on a suit and do a Big Al too. I mean, he does not look. No, it's...
Oh, I think I found one of the pictures. Never mind then. Okay, so that about wraps it up.
Gosh. Yeah,
You'll have a good night. Hope we entertained you. And we'll be back next week with the latest and greatest in geek news, correct? So I guess we'll see.
Well, latest and greatest or latest and worst. We'll see.
I don't know. I'm looking forward to that Knuckles series. It's going to happen.
All right.
Okay, good night,
Take care, everyone.